Good evening, everyone. Happy weekend to one and all, and welcome to your Winged Eagle podcast for October 18th, 2020. I am coming at you a day late, and I want to sincerely apologize for that right up front. You guys know how my work schedule and my personal life schedule can be a little bit, and yesterday was shaping up to just be a really, really busy day. Whereas today, a beautiful Sunday afternoon, I got the whole day off. I got nothing going on. So I made the announcement yesterday on YouTube and social media that I'll be bumping the podcast one day just to give us enough time to kind of be able to hang out, chat some wrestling, and even open up a cold beer because I got nowhere to be. So I thought today would be a much better podcast day just for us to talk some wrestling because we have a loaded episode here with wrestling news and a whole week full of a lot of wrestling results. We got Hell in the Cell coming up right around the corner a week from today. We got Full Gear on the horizon, and we just have a lot to get into. So, and we have Halloween Havoc coming up in just over a week as well. So there's a lot of wrestling results, a lot of future wrestling cards to discuss, a lot of news to discuss, and just a lot of stuff to get into in general. So that's why I went ahead and bumped it to today. Thank you for being patient. Thank you to everybody that's already here waiting in the chat. And I want to tell Alexandria Martin to tell her boyfriend hello. Apparently he's a big fan of good mic work. Thanks again for that. And I appreciate everybody else being in here, like Real American and Lambo for Life and Andrew and my man Howie, How Weezy. I want to shout him out as well. How Weezy. He sent me earlier on this week, he sent me a cameo from one of my favorite people in WWE, Scott Stanford. I don't know why I like this guy, I just do. He's always cracked me up. His personality is funny. He's interesting on social media, and he always responds to anything I tag him in and stuff. The dude's just a stud, and I've always liked him for years, and How Weezy sent me a really nice cameo from him earlier this week. So thank you very much for that, How Weezy, and it's good to see you. Big J and Mario and JC. Barry MK is here. By the way, got to shout out Barry as well. If you are looking for a new retro classic pay-per-view review to watch randomly, I've got one up on my channel. It hit the channel on Wednesday. It's a review of TNA Bound for Glory 2010. We just passed the 10-year anniversary of that show, so I took a look back on it. The Jeff Hardy heel turn, the Hogan and Bischoff stuff, the whole deal that was going on back then in 2010. Watched the show for the first time in my life and did a review on it. So you can check that out on the channel as well. So thank you, as always, to you guys. You're awesome. Good to see you, Dan Price, Zapp and Roger, Jordan Rose. Pretty good amount of people in here. And Devlin Husband chiming in with a $5 super chat right off the bat. Thanks, dude, and how are you? Forgot to mention this, but I'm the only one who just can't get into any of the wrestling promotions today, both AEW and WWE. I can't get invested in. You're not the only one. I mean, we hear that a lot. I mean, that's part of the problem just in modern times with just everything's kind of been done. It's hard to get emotionally invested anymore when just the atmosphere and how it all feels is so starkly different. And it's not like necessarily like the Attitude Era was better or certain eras were better. It's just we hadn't seen everything yet. We didn't have 11 hours of wrestling content per week to where you're getting to the point now in 2020 where you're just rehashing stuff that's already been done throughout the years, where back in the day it really wasn't like that. You hadn't run through all of your options yet. You hadn't run through all of your ideas. Now, not only have you ran through all those ideas, you've ran through them twice. So it's really hard to get and kind of live vicariously through people and suspend your disbelief and all that stuff that was really easy to do, and at least in my younger days, that is virtually impossible to do today, with the exception of a few things here or there. Sometimes a wrestling company like WWE or AEW can hit a home run with something. I'm going to talk very, very highly here in just a little bit about the Roman Reigns and Jey Uso storyline on Smackdown, which is just marvelous. But other than little tiny instances like that, you're right. It is hard to get invested in shows these days. So I think maybe, social media, YouTube helps a little bit with that. There's a lot of people that hang out here that say, I didn't watch the show tonight, just watching your review. It's totally common. I'd probably be doing the same thing if I didn't have to do these reviews. You know what I mean? I'd probably be watching other people. So, it's kind of the nature of the beast today. And, we just got to hope that, wrestling can once again capture our imaginations the way it used to, and it really doesn't come anywhere close to doing that these days, at least for me. And Devlin, you're right there with me. I feel bad for you, too, because you're so young. What are you, 23 or 24 now? Maybe even younger than that? You're super young. I was your age during the Attitude Era. So, I got to be in my mid-20s during the craziest of times. And I've always said this. I've said this over and over. I am literally the perfect age to be a wrestling fan. Because I missed out on some good stuff in the 70s because I was way, way, way too young. But other than that, that's really all I missed. Anything beyond that was, it was a different business back then, but I was a young kid during the 80s, when Hogan came on board, and then I was, 8 to 12 years old during the Hulkamania era and the cartoony rock and wrestling era. And then I became a teenager and a young man during the Attitude Era. I was literally the perfect age. And then I became an adult when they went back to PG, where by then all of the 8-year-olds during the Attitude Era were now old enough to experience adult-oriented content, and WWE went backwards on them and did PG. That's why you had so many haters back in the day. Oh, PG sucks and blah, blah, blah. You're just pissed because you didn't get to experience it like I did. But it's all about, too, like, what your age, what you're watching, what time period it is, and all that has to kind of line up. And, if I'm somebody in my mid-20s, I'm right there with you, Devlin. It is going to be hard for me to really get invested. But luckily, you can always go back in time and watch some stuff. I even mentioned that during the when the pandemic first started. I'm like, just cancel Raw and play every Raw from 1998 and 1999. You're going to have to edit out a lot of stuff. But if you play those every single week, how in the world is that going to do worse ratings than what they're doing right now? You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of, where we are in wrestling today. And it's a little bit depressing. Thanks for reminding us of that, Devlin. And good to see you. Hope all is well in Hawaii land. And Chris, good to see you, man. Appreciate the $5. Hey, Greg, hope you're all moved in now. Just about. I've just about finished up. It's really been kind of crazy, but still like little tiny things to work on and stuff. But in terms of, the office here and where we're going to, broadcast live streams from, I'm pretty much ready to go. So all that went off really without a hitch. Couldn't have gone better, as a matter of fact. But I appreciate the 5. Have you seen the video of MJF on the Rosie O'Donnell show singing "You Are My Sunshine"? Yeah, I think I did. I don't know why I was thinking that was Ellen. It was Rosie. You're right. Yeah, when he was a little kid, a little shithead, right? He was on there. Yeah, he had quite the young life. We're going to be talking a lot about MJF because I've got some ideas as to what I think is going to happen with that Inner Circle MJF storyline. And him and Chris Jericho have got their first date this coming Wednesday, a steak dinner. How adorable is that? I'm going to be tuning into that steak dinner. It's going to be good stuff. Off Leather Wings, good to see you. Appreciate the 5. Favorite belts? Oh, man, you're asking a question that everybody knows. They're right behind me. It's hard to see them. Right there in the corner. Winged Eagle, my number 1. Intercontinental, close number 2. 2 favorite belts. No belts come anywhere close to those 2. And those are really the only ones that I'm super, super in love with. Maybe the old school tag. And as you can see, there's a theme there. I'm kind of an old school guy. I'm kind of a 90s guy. That was the most impressionable time on me as a wrestling fan. And that's why I'm so attached to those belts. So those are the only ones I've liked. We've had lots of belt discussions on the podcast here throughout the years. Just last week, I think, we were talking about everything. I talked about how I'm one of the only people that really did not like the Undisputed belt from 2002. Hated that belt. Didn't like Austin's 1998 blue belt either. Wasn't a huge fan of the Smoking Skull. I want to take a shit on the spinner belt. So there's really haven't been any title belts since those that I've really liked, to be honest with you. I do like the AEW title, which I have the toy of right there. That belt's cool because it's a little bit different. But again, it's not, overly my favorite. But your favorite championship belts are the old Intercontinental title with the black strap. Nice. The spinner belt and the IWGP heavyweight title is good. What is wrong with you liking the spinner belt? Let me just go ahead and block you. No, I'm kidding. Everybody has a right to their opinion. I just, as a traditionalist, as like an old school guy, that spinner belt was not for me. That was not made for my type of, for a fan like me, basically. And I was very, very much against it. Just thought it was dumb. But that's okay if you liked it. Not saying you're wrong. And appreciate you hanging out today. And Barry, thanks for chiming in with $2. Who has the better theme song, Linda or Vince? Linda. That 90s WrestleMania theme? Love that. Linda does, totally. Anyway, I just want to knock out those supers right off the bat here. I've been going for a few minutes, haven't even done a sound check yet. All right, we're looking good. All right, cool. Do me a favor today, if you guys don't mind, smash the thumbs up as much as you can. Don't really have too much scheduling to get into for this week, other than things should be back to normal. I'll be up here tomorrow, immediately after Raw. We'll do a full Raw review. And then on Saturday, I'll be back up at normal time for the Winged Eagle podcast. We will also knock out Hell in a Cell predictions on that podcast on Saturday. And then 1 week from tonight, immediately after Hell in a Cell, I'll be up here for a full live review. I got a giveaway coming up this week. I think I'm probably going to do it on the next Winged Eagle. I just have to figure out how to do it. I don't know the best way to do a giveaway these days. I want everybody to be eligible for it. I don't want to just limit it to super chats or anything like that. So I got to figure out a way to get names, put them in a randomizer somehow, and I'm going to be giving away these things. They're actually right here. I'll show them to you. So these are the computer speakers that I use. These are Creative, Inspire, really nice, awesome computer speakers. I already have a set of them, and I bought a second set because I have two computers, and during the move, I thought I really like these speakers, and I wanted to set up a set for each computer. But the way my setup is and my layout is, there's actually no room for these, and they're brand new to sit on my desk. So instead of going through the pain in the ass Amazon return system or policy or whatever, it's a pain in the ass. Instead of doing that, I'm going to give them away. So I'm going to research the best way to do a giveaway, and we're going to do it next week on the podcast. So if you have a computer and you need a good set of speakers, these things are badass, and we'll send them out to a lucky winner in 6 days, this coming Saturday. So I just got to look at the best way to do it. If any of you have any options or suggestions on the best way to do a giveaway, if you've ever entered any in other YouTube videos, let me know. Never really used a randomizer, never really used any sort of way of selecting someone, and I don't really know the best fair way to do it, because that's what I want to do. I want to be fair. So anyway, that's coming up next week, and if it goes well, we'll do more giveaways in the future. But other than that, that is kind of it for scheduling. So the menu for today, I think what we're going to do is start with some wrestling news. Not a ton, but just a couple of tidbits I want to mention. Plus, we had the finals of the G1 Climax last night, and we had a repeat winner in that. We also had an announcement on Wrestle Kingdom. So we'll get into some wrestling news first. Then we're going to talk about last night's season premiere of Smackdown. We did this last week. We started with Smackdown because it was the draft, but I thought Friday's Smackdown was a really good show, and it had a lot of stuff on there. And like I said, Roman and Jey Uso continue to impress. And we had a big title match, main event on that show with Roman defending against Braun Strowman. So that was pretty good. We'll touch a little bit on tomorrow night's Monday Night Raw, and then I'm going to gloss over the Wednesday Night Wars this week. Both shows were good. AEW was very good. They had 4 title matches on that show, and they were celebrating their 1-year anniversary on TNT. So I was very interested in AEW, but to be honest, not so much NXT. The show didn't really interest me this week. I almost didn't tune in, but when I took a look at the results and watched the show a little bit, I did see that they have set themselves up pretty nicely for Halloween Havoc coming up a week from Wednesday. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well, and we'll run through the current Hell in the Cell card. Like I said, Hell in the Cell is 1 week from today, and I think we still only have, I guess, only 2 confirmed matches. Technically, Bayley and Sasha should be a third, but as we saw on Friday, Bayley didn't sign the contract. I'm sure she's going to. We know we're going to get that match. So technically, there's probably only 3 confirmed matches, and all 3 of them are Hell in the Cells. Other than that, we're going to have to piece together where it looks like they're going to, where they're going with the rest of the matches heading into the cell. So we'll get a few announced tomorrow, and the rest of the card I'm sure will be filled out this coming Friday as well. And other than that, we'll probably just hang around. We'll answer some questions. We'll see if there's anything relevant to talk about that took place this week that I might have forgotten. We'll play it cool, we'll play it easy, and hang out, because like I said, I don't have to rush out of here to work tonight, and that's a really good feeling. Let me see. Let me cruise back up here. Barry, I knocked out that super. I'll knock out one more from Steven Scott. Then I'll hit the Patreon shoutouts, and then we will get into the news. Steven Scott, appreciate 5. Hey, good Michael. Did you watch the 2020 NBA Finals? I watched as much of it as I could. I had to work for, 6 games? I think I had to work during 4 of them. But I was home to watch the final game. I was at work during, I think it was Game 5 when Miami pulled out the win. I think that was, it was Game 5. Miami won. LA was up 3-1. They could have put them away, and Miami behind Jimmy Butler, who's just fantastic. And I really like Miami. I liked him when LeBron was there. I like Eric Spoelstra as a coach. The fact that he's had such a long run there, just as an old school NBA fan, I appreciate that stuff. Seeing that today, and Jimmy Butler is just a freaking superstar, man. But I watched it, and it's bittersweet because there's no fans in attendance and things like that, and Kobe passing away in January really made you root hard for the Lakers. I've always been a Lakers. I'm a Pistons fan first, but I've always kind of rooted for the Lakers. My dad and Magic Johnson went to college together at Michigan State. I've always just had like when the Pistons and Lakers played each other in the finals back in the 80s and stuff, and Isaiah and Magic and their kind of their friendship and everything. So I've always liked the Lakers. Never rooted for them first or anything, but never rooted against them. I didn't hate them the way, a lot of other fans do. So, and I've always had LeBron's back, just like John Cena, just like Roman Reigns, just like anybody who's unjustly shit on by a bunch of angry assholes. I always step up and defend him, and I did that with LeBron. I pretty much support the guy wherever he plays, and the fact that he came here to LA and, they won one in the name of Kobe, Laker fan or not, you kind of wanted that moment just for them. I just wish it could have been in Staples Center, in front of a packed house, 20,000 crying people chanting Kobe, holding up the trophy for him, the whole thing done for him in his honor. Would have been really cool to see in a non-pandemic world. But props to the NBA. They put everybody in that bubble, 0 goose egg fucking positive COVID tests. They did a great job while they were there, and even they even, campaigned hard and fought against, voter suppression and did a lot of good things, standing up for social injustice and racial injustice. The fact that they ran everything properly and they weren't irresponsible and they did all of that without anybody getting sick. How crazy is it that the NBA did a better job than the government, handling this type of stuff? So they deserve a lot of credit for that, for being able to pull that off, for taking the right precautions. And you wonder, like, if they can do it, why can't WWE or AEW? They've both been hit with multiple COVID tests, and part of that is, probably the talent's fault too a little bit. We've heard a lot of stories about how they're out mingling and partying and going places and stuff. But, at least in the NBA, they really didn't seem to have that problem. I think a lot of these guys were just quarantined or confined to their hotel rooms. They didn't get to really get out and do a whole lot, but it worked and it kept everybody safe. And, that above else, above them just not pulling off the season, but also, getting a champion crowned, for them to do that without anybody getting COVID is impressive. So they deserve a ton of credit for that. So yes, Steven Scott, I did watch that. All right, enough about NBA. This is a wrestling podcast, so let me shut my mouth. And let me shout out all of our great friends over on Patreon who support the channel. You can do so yourself at patreon.com/goodmicwork. Every little bit helps to keep the channel rolling. And I appreciate everybody that's always been here with me for very, very long, including Alex Dredge, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Scotty Cura, Brandon Yelverton, Michael Tong, Nick Musser, K-Dog's Kennel, Ryan Y., Devlin Husband, the Double Z TV, John Redifer, Claudio Klabadetster, Jordan Karg, Daniel Rodriguez, Barry from Hawaii, Josiah Blevins, Mr. Steve, Scott Moss, Domanian Ewell, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, Nathan Walker, Blake Moran, Alex Reynolds. Guys, I appreciate it as always. Man, I'm looking down here. Blake's been with us since 2015. Wow. Yeah, some of y'all have put a lot of years in on the Patreon, so I very, very much appreciate that. All right, let's get into, what did I say we're going to do first? Wrestling news, right? Now, unfortunately, because of my move, because of my busy life in the past couple of weeks, I had to sacrifice something, and I didn't want to. But I sacrificed the G1. I watched night one. I was stoked for it because I love staying up late and watching Japanese wrestling, and especially that, they've got some fans back in attendance there, kind of gave you a little bit of sense of normalcy, even though, the Japanese audience behaves very differently than a USA audience anyway, and they're quite quiet. They're a lot quieter and things like that. Just to see them there and to hear their voices was comforting. And then I was just jacked for the whole thing. But, as the move started going, I was like, I was not going to be able to keep up with this. So I was only able to catch the little bit last night, the final match with Ibushi and Sonata. And Kota Ibushi repeats as G1 Climax tournament champion again. He'll get another title shot this year at Wrestle Kingdom, which is going to happen. They did announce Wrestle Kingdom 15 will take place January 4th and 5th. 2-day event, Tokyo Dome. That's official, so they're going to go through with that in January, which, like I said, much like the NBA, hey, as long as they're safe. And I know Japan has got a very small number of cases in comparison to the rest of the world. As long as they're safe, I say have at it and, wear your mask and be safe. And, that's going to be nice. That might be the first. That's probably going to be the biggest gathering, right? Probably in the world up until that point. Nobody's really, I mean, you would imagine. I mean, we've had some NFL games here in the States and even some college games. I saw the Georgia and Alabama game last night, had a quite amount of people in the audience for that. But then again, it's Alabama, and we know how smart they are there. So I think this could have a chance to be, kind of the biggest gathering of humans since this whole thing started about a year ago. once we get to Wrestle Kingdom. So that's fun. That'll also mark, the 3rd or 4th anniversary. Whenever Jericho had his match with Omega, that's when I became a subscriber of New Japan World, was for that Wrestle Kingdom. I'm pretty sure that was 2018. So here we are. I've had 3 full years of being a subscriber to that, and I can pretty much thank Chris Jericho for that, because I wouldn't have joined had it not been for him. But it's probably the best $10 a month I spend is on that. Really good stuff. So congrats again to Kota Ibushi. He's one of my favorites. I really want to see him win. I mean, what do you think? If he's got to win the title this time, right? Because he didn't last time. So I'm guessing it's going to be him and Naito, right? Unless something crazy happens between now and then. So I'm kind of rooting for him this time, because, you wonder, a guy, you just look at him, he's just such a freak in nature too, the shape that he's in, but also the style he wrestles. He ain't going to be a 50-year-old wrestler. At some point, if you want to put the IWGP title on him, you got to do it before his neck completely explodes off the side of his body, because every single match that he just has to take a pile driver on the apron or something like that, or come millimeters away from paralyzing himself, and it's not a Kota Ibushi match unless he doesn't do that. And Sonata too took a bunch of hard falls on their heads last night, which is so freaking scary. So, at some point, as impressive as this guy is, slap the strap on him. I think it's time. I think he's going to take it in January. At least I hope he does. So congrats to him there. If I'm able to go backwards in time a little bit and watch a few of these matches, hit me with your suggestions. Which ones, because I don't know how many nights we have, 16 nights, something like that. Which ones were really standouts? I know we had Okada and Will Ospreay, which I think was pretty awesome, and a couple of other ones here or there. If there's any match that I absolutely cannot miss, hit me with them in the chat below, or in the comments below, or in the chat, and I'll try my best to get a look at them. But unfortunately, because of my life, I kind of had to sacrifice really keeping track of that the way I wanted to. But we'll cover Wrestle Kingdom very heavily in January when it's time for that. Funny story about this potential mole in AEW. Chris Jericho does his Saturday night live streams on YouTube every week, and he made mention that there was an NXT reject, as he put it, that will never be back in AEW again, because he was the one that leaked Eric Bischoff's appearance during the debate when he came back to TNT and showed up on Dynamite. We caught wind of that prior to the event. We remember it all over social media and everybody talking about it. And he didn't really come out and say who it was, but Fightful did a little digging here, and they might have identified who this person was, and they think it might be Tino Sabatelli. And I remember when he was there the first time in NXT, and then he left. I guess he was in AEW. I didn't even know he was there. I don't recall seeing him on TV ever. I don't know if he worked a dark match or an AEW dark match or what. But apparently he was there, and he might have been the one that leaked this information. And there's talk now that maybe WWE sent him there to be a spy or a mole. I think that's hilarious, and I actually kind of hope it's true. I hope these companies start sending spies to the other. Why not? Why not make it fun? Fuck it. So Jericho seemed pretty upset about that. Tino Sabatelli is back not only at the PC, but has signed back with the WWE. So that might have been what kind of triggered a lot of those thoughts, now that the fact that he actually is re-signed with them and is back. I just found that as an amusing story more than anything. It wasn't really earth-shattering or anything like that, but it reminded me a little bit of back in the day. Todd Gordon was accused of kind of being a mole in ECW. He was working there, and he's part owner, I think, prior to Heyman being there. But he was the one that was kind of, bridging the gap between ECW and WCW, and sending so many WCW guys, or so many ECW guys, to WCW. He had a big role in that. And I remember there was this big story about Todd Gordon was a mole and all this crap. And we haven't really heard anything like that since back then. And that would have been like 95, 96 when that story was coming out. So first time in 25 years I've seen a mole being discussed in professional wrestling. But New Japan just had a big internal shakeup with Harold. I don't know how you say his last name, who has departed ways with the company, and that, his departure might even open up the door for an AEW and New Japan working relationship. And if that happens, oh my God, because we've seen, Tanahashi did a cameo on AEW a week or two ago. And I think Moxley, Moxley's still the U.S. champion over there. I think Jericho's made an appearance as well. So there's a possibility there. I think that would be especially when, you can travel again and things start getting back to normal. If they can work something out and have a working agreement, that's not a working agreement that I think is going to damage either brand. I think it can help both. And I think, it'll add a lot of interesting talent and a lot of interesting potential matches, especially in AEW. You know, if they're trying to really compete with WWE, something like that can really help. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we do see that one day in the future, and I kind of feel like we will, just based on what we've already seen. There's also some news going around. You guys see the story about I missed this whole thing, but the GCW Collective show, I think it was last weekend or whatever it was a complete disaster. I mean, this was supposed to be a really fun weekend, kind of like a celebration of independent wrestling, kind of a feel-good story and moment in the midst of all of this craziness that we're dealing with here in 2020. And a lot of positive COVID tests came out of this. There was a sexual harassment claim against Logan Stunt, who was trying to hit on one of the gear makers there, and she released these long statements detailing everything and about her PTSD and her medication and how this traumatized her and all of this, and it made Logan Stunt look like a huge douche. And just nothing, while it was happening, I was seeing a lot of positive feedback from it, you know, on Twitter and stuff. But after it was over, you know, in terms of the matches and some of the people that appeared on there and things like that. But then when it was over, it was just this shitstorm of bad news, and that sucks for them. Sean Ross Sapp did an interview with the owner or the promoter there, where he kind of explained his side of the story and stuff. It's a really good listen if you care enough about that to sit through it for an hour. It's good stuff. It's informative, and he at least told his side of the story. But I just found that to be like kind of a sad ordeal, because you know, we're trying to get back on our feet, independent wrestling especially, coming off the heels of the Speaking Out movement and everything that kind of tore through just professional wrestling in general. This could have been like a step back in the right direction, and I felt like they kind of took a step in the opposite direction. So that kind of sucks, but what can you do? What do the kids say these days? It is what it is. Why is everybody saying that, by the way? Is that a song or something? I've been asking people that. Nobody seems to know. Also want to make mention of Ben Carter. Ben Carter, according to Meltzer, I don't think there's been anything official from WWE. According to Dave, Ben Carter has officially signed with WWE. I've only seen Ben Carter on AEW. I think on Dark, he's wrestled a couple of matches. Thought he was like 0-2, 0-3, something like that. Apparently he's been on Impact as well. I've never seen him there, and I'm not that familiar with him other than like the one match I've seen him in. But he has potential, and he was garnering interest from a lot of the companies to actually be signed. AEW, Impact, and WWE all had interest in him. And Miro even made mention on Twitter that they've lost Ben Carter to the dark side, and all indications are that he is going to WWE. But I thought what was weird about this is like a whole bunch of fans turned on him. I guess, you know, the AEW crazy cult fans took exception to this. I saw people saying, yeah, had to unfollow the guy. I just find that incredibly petty and incredibly stupid. He has a right to sign with whoever he wants. Well, he's just going to be lost in the shuffle now. Guess what, bitch? It's his life. It is not your life. You don't make his decisions, you know? And if he decides to go somewhere where he wants, where he feels he will be better off in terms of his life, in terms of financially, or in terms of learning more about wrestling, you know, I mean, being in the PC, you know, being able to be in the ring and train around guys like Shawn Michaels and Triple H and William Regal and all these freaking legends, I'd probably want to be there too, to be honest with you. I don't think it was that big of a deal. I understand that due to his size, due to his look, and due to the abundance of wrestlers WWE already has there, it is not hard to get lost in the shuffle. Will he get lost in the shuffle? Probably. But again, that's his decision to make. It's not your call. It's nobody's call. And to take it that personally, you know, where a wrestler signs, instead of just saying, hey, good luck, hope it works out for you there. Oh, I'm unfollowing you. It's just a really good illustration of how petty and childish and just repugnant wrestling fans can be sometimes. So you know what, Ben? I never knew much about you before, but I'm going to support your ass now, just based on, you know, how the fans treated you, just because you decided to sign with the biggest wrestling promotion that has ever existed. Somehow you're a bad guy for that. I don't understand. Anyway, best of luck to Ben Carter in WWE. Here's a fun story, heartwarming story. Just saw this today when I woke up. So, are you guys familiar with the British Bulldog Kid? He was this fan. It's actually a she. But this fan was shown in the beginning of the SummerSlam 1992 pay-per-view that was at Wembley in England, and they had, I guess it was on, I think it's on the Coliseum video, which I have. and they're interviewing a bunch of fans outside of the building, and there's this famous fan that has the great quote, "The British Bulldog's gonna win whether he wants to or not." And you're just like, what the fuck? So it's kind of been like it's kind of been this like legendary thing. And I think even Wrestle Arcade a couple of years ago released like an action figure of the British Bulldog kid. He's got the hat and everything. Well, after all of these years, after 28 years, this person has finally been identified. A woman by the name of Stacy sent DMs to Wrestling Arcade and said that she knows the fan in question here, and that it's a girl, and her name is Amy. And she went on, and Wrestle Arcade went on to release all of the messages here that they shared with each other. And she talked about how because of her outfit, she had like a big boss man hat and I think somebody else's jacket. They kind of pulled her out of the crowd to like read a line. So that wasn't her line apparently. She was given that to read, which is almost even weirder. Why would WWE tell a fan to say that? Maybe she mispronounced it. Maybe she said it wrong. But it's always been hysterical to go back and watch that. The British Bulldog's gonna win whether he wants to or not. But anyway, she was floored to find out that she had an action figure made after her, and that she is this like legendary figure in wrestling. So they have tracked her down, and she's going to be doing an interview like this week. Oh shoot, I forgot to write down the name of who she's being interviewed by. Damn, I'm sorry. But anyway, you can look that up. That should be a really interesting interview just to hear her side of the story, to see what she looks like now. She's going to be maybe 38, something like that. Because I think she was around 10 years old of the time of that. So that's just a fun, feel-good story. I was thrilled to read that today. Got a huge kick out of it because that's something that I remember. I remember watching that 28 years ago, and I'm like, what did that person say? Whether he wants to or not. I guess that is kind of true. It's not untrue. I mean, if you're told backstage by Vince that you're going to win this match, then guess what? You're going to win that match whether you want to or not. So I suppose it's not that inaccurate. It just sounded so stupid back in the day. But Amy, it's nice to meet you. Can't wait to hear what you have to say about your experience here. The DMs went on to reveal that she did meet a couple of other people, like Paul Bearer said she ran into him on the way to the toilet, which was interesting. I don't know if Paul Bearer's going to the bathroom with all the fans or not. It's pretty gross when you think about it. You're welcome for putting that image in your head, by the way. But just a few interesting little tidbits coming out of that, and that was just a story that warmed my 43-year-old heart. You know what I mean? Anywho, before we get on to Smackdown, because that was pretty much all I have written down for the news there, let me cruise up here. Knock out a couple of more super chats because I know there's a few, and then we'll start with last Friday's Smackdown and Stephanie and Triple H opening up the show, and Lars Sullivan and the New Day farewell, and Roman Reigns and Strowman and all that good stuff, and Daniel Bryan coming back. So we'll be getting into that in a second. WWE Fan 22, appreciate the $10. Thanks for covering my WWE network this month. Hey Greg, missed a few of your podcasts. Your thoughts on the AEW dog collar match with Cody and Brody? How did it compare to other strap-type matches like this, in your opinion? We did talk about that. I think it was on last week's podcast. I thought the dog collar match was really good. It was a really nice touch. Also having Greg the Hammer Valentine there in attendance for that, just to watch. And I thought it held up in terms of what dog collar matches can be. They're bloody and they're brutal and they're vicious, and that match had all of it. And I thought they pulled it off well. I did mention that for Cody, I think they should have done a bull rope match, because I've told the story 1,000 times. My first ever memory of wrestling was the Dusty Rhodes Superstar Billy Graham matches from MSG, and one of those matches was the Texas bull rope match. I think it might have been the third in the trio, and there's this famous shot where Dusty wraps the rope around Billy Graham's neck and hangs him over the top rope, and he's just like hanging there dangling. And that's an image that was just burned into my extremely young wrestling brain that I've like never forgotten ever since then. So I just thought, for history's sake, instead of it being a dog collar match, something that's so synonymous with Piper and Valentine, do something that's synonymous with Dusty. Do a bull rope match. But it was Brody Lee was the one that issued the challenge for the dog collar. So, in storyline, that's how that worked out. But I thought it was fine. I wasn't a fan of Cody winning. I have Cody's back, and I don't give him the same type of shit that fans don't seem to like Cody for some reason. I think the guy's great. So I don't dislike him the way a lot of fans do, but I didn't want him winning that title back, especially after the way Brody won it. They finally kind of getting this guy over. The Dark Order has been so hit or miss. They came in, it was so terrible. And even the Exalted one, beyond that first week when he made fun of Vince McMahon, it was like terribly downhill after that. Brody Lee finally starts getting me to care about him. Then he wins the title in just an amazing squash of Cody, only so Cody can go do that game show and then come back and win it right back. I didn't like that. I didn't like it. And as we saw this past week, Cody is back to being blonde too. So the dog collar match I liked. I thought they did do well, even though I wasn't a fan of the outcome, and even though I would have done a bull rope match instead, just to pay tribute to Dusty. Chris Miner, appreciate the $5. If NXT brought back another old pay-per-view, which would you bring? I want them to do One Night Stand. NXT and Hammerstein Ballroom would be dope. That would be all right. I'd be down with that. Not sure if would you have the same atmosphere though? I mean, all the fans that were there, you know, in the ballroom back in the day, they're all old now. You know, do we have that type of energy when we're in our 50s? You know, to go be crazy. But NXT show in Hammerstein would be good. They'd have to stack the card pretty well though, and I think that, as we'll talk about here when we talk about the Wednesday night shows, I think NXT is I feel like it's in a little bit of a decline. There's not a whole lot on NXT right now that I am that invested in. They still have great talent. They still have matches, great matches. Match after match is just fantastic. But that magic that NXT had was really kind of tarnished and damaged a little bit by them going to USA and going head-to-head with AEW and going to 2 hours. You know, because it gave us double the programming now. And now we're getting commercials, and now we're going to, you know, since there's a competition type of thing, NXT is going to probably start resembling a lot more of Raw and SmackDown than what, you know, it was and what got it over to begin with. So we were going to lose a little bit of that, and we were going to lose a little bit of the magic on takeovers. Now they're doing takeovers, you know, like every month, and they're on Sundays, and things are changing, and I don't like it. But if a good way to kind of breathe some life in there is to do something like that, and maybe bring in a couple of new names or random people to have some really good matches, or some people from other NXT wrestlers pasts that can come in, some Ex-Evolve guys or Ring of Honor guys, or bring in somebody new just to have like a feature match or something like that on the card that the fans can just react to and have a good time with and do their clapping and their "this is awesomes" and have a whole card full of that. I'd totally be into it. One Night Stand, though, I feel like I even want to go more old school than that, because I only liked one Night Stand. I liked the first one. I didn't really like the second one, where it was like Big Show and Randy Orton and a whole bunch of WWE guys. That first one in 2005 was great, but that's the only one I really liked. So I'd bring back another WCW one. I'd bring back Slamboree or Spring Stampede. What else is missing? Bash at the Beach, something like that. I would try to do, since they've already, you know, done In Your House, and now we're doing Halloween Havoc on the 28th. But I think an NXT show in Hammerstein would be fun. But, you know, being there, that name, that pay-per-view name does make the most sense. If it's going to be in Hammerstein, it probably should be One Night Stand. I don't even think there's really any ECW personalities you could really bring in. I just talked about them in the Bound for Glory 2010 review. It was EV2 against Fortune. You know, and even 10 years ago, I thought those guys were 10 years too old to be doing in there, especially Foley and Sabu and even Dreamer to an extent. So I thought they were too old 10 years ago. Don't know what they could bring to the table now in 2020 or 2022 or whenever this would happen, hypothetically. So I don't know. But I'd be down with that. Certainly would be an amazing visual. What's up, Madeline? Good to see you. I go to Penn State, and our games start this Saturday. No fans allowed for us, which makes complete sense. It does. I did not know. Did you tell me you went to Penn State? I didn't know that. That's awesome. I've been to Penn State University. I was one of my good buddies, Jason. I was the best man at his wedding, and his wife was from Scranton, Pennsylvania, and she went to Penn State, and she was actually really good friends with the Paterno family. Joe Paterno was invited to the wedding. He didn't come, but he sent a gift and a really nice card and a really nice message to the two of them. And when the wedding was over, they went to go take all of their pictures, their wedding pictures, on the campus of Penn State. We found the Nittany Lion statue and took a picture by that. And it was all around the campus there. It was my first time ever up there. I ain't going to lie, I was a little bit scared of Scranton. And if my car would have broken down there, I might have feared for my butthole. But otherwise, it was a nice trip, and it was cool to be up and see the Penn State campus for the first time. And that's cool. You probably told me that, and I just forgot. But best of luck up there, and stay warm. It's freaking cold up there, girl. And good luck to you. Get straight A's, all right? Chris Miner, good to see you back. Thanks again for $2 more. That or Uncensored, that's a good one. King of the Road with the King of the Road match. I'd be down with Uncensored. Uncensored was so lame though too back in the day. Like I thought it was. I remember when WCW first did the first promo. I happened to be watching like WCW Saturday Night or whatever when I saw the first promo for Uncensored. And it was right. I mean, Raw had only been on TV for a couple of years at this point, and I remember mistakenly thinking that Uncensored wasn't a pay-per-view. I was thinking it was a TV show. I thought they were advertising an upcoming TV show. I'm like, holy shit, they're ripping off Monday Night Raw. Because Raw is uncensored and uncooked or whatever the hell the slogan was back in the day, and now they're doing WCW Uncensored. I thought it was a direct ripoff, but it turned out to be a pay-per-view instead, and the first one was pretty hokey. I think it was the one with Darso and Dustin. They were like in the back of a truck and all this. It was just so weird and hokey. But now I miss the concept of Uncensored. I'd love to bring it back with remember the little logo with like the torn out magazine stuff. Those were the days. I'd be down with an Uncensored. Why not? Why not? Barry, thank you for 2 more. You seen that new Taker documentaries coming soon? Yeah, I've seen that. I'm planning on watching that for sure. I did see all of that. Might have been, was it YouTube I saw that on? Some advertisement for it. But I was aware. All right. Did I catch these up? No. One more, guys. Chris Ledecky. Thanks again, man. Welcome back. Appreciate another one. $5. The Bulldog Hart match reminds me Bret Hart did a perfect German suplex that night. Why didn't he add that to his moveset and it fit his style? He busted it out every now and then. Bret Hart did Germans. It wasn't, he didn't have it in his rotation. It wasn't with the middle rope elbow, Russian leg sweep, suplex, backbreaker. But I can remember lots of matches. I remember him putting a German on Steve Austin, on Owen, Sean. He used a German frequently, but not as frequently. Yeah, but yeah, he should have. He knew how to do it. It's a tough move though to make look really good, especially somebody the size of the Bulldog and stuff. Especially when if you want to pin them and you got to bridge up with your neck like that. I always think of like somebody like Benoit, throwing the best ones. Especially if you're looking to try to pin on top of it. But yeah, Bret, that was it's kind of like the crucifix thing that he did. He just busted him out sometimes, but he was really married to that series of 4 moves that he would use to set up the sharpshooter, and he didn't deviate much from that very often. World War III. I think we actually did talk about that one, Dan, recently. If they did that now, God, I could see 3 rings. Why not? There's definitely, back in the day when WCW did it, they were having to pull guys out of the woodwork. They were having to try to bring in guys in for one-shot deals. Now, there's more than enough people in WWE to make that happen. Where I think World War III would probably be the most fun would probably be in AEW. If they could kind of do the same thing that WCW did back in the day, use all the talent they have in the 3-ring battle royal, but they're not going to have enough. So they're going to have to sign one-shot deal guys. So anybody that's still out there, any old-timer that can still lace them up, or just make an appearance just to be there, not to win the thing or anything, but just to come out might be it'll be fun, especially if you don't know who the participants are. You just know like 35 out of the 60. So that means 25 are going to be surprises, and you bring guys out, like a Tommy Dreamer or somebody random like that. Even if they're 55 years old, Ricky Morton and, just names from the past, I think that might be fun just for shits and gigs. I'm all about shits and gigs. Alex, thanks, dude. Good to see you, man. Appreciate the super. You are you're back on the Patreon support as well. And thanks again for your message. I did get that last week, I believe. Hi, Greg. Which Hell in a Cell match has you most interested to see so far? Keep up the great work. I'm not going to lie, man. I like all 3 of them. I guess I'm going to say Roman and Jay. I mean, all along, it's been all about Bayley and Sasha for me. I've been waiting for these 2 to get inside the Hell in a Cell. I still think that should be the main event, but it might not. Just based on the storyline going on right now with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, I think that's the best thing across all of WWE TV. It's almost as good as Britt Baker and Tony Schiavone, but not quite. But across all of WWE, it's the best, and it's almost the best across all of wrestling. So I think just that, not because I'm not sure who's going to win. Bayley and Sasha has a lot more, I don't know what's going to happen than Roman and Jay, even though I'm pretty confident Sasha will win. With the Roman and Jay stuff, it's not about who's winning and who's losing. It's about what's going to happen to Jay. Will he die? And that's kind of what the whole thing is about. And like we'll talk about here in a second as we get into SmackDown, Roman at the end of the show, finally when he hit him with a Superman punch, he's like, that was your last chance. Damn it. That was your last chance. Like, I'm going to kill you now. So we got one more week, we got one more SmackDown for the go home show prior to Hell in the Cell, but for them to change my mind here. But I'm looking forward to all three of them in their own individual ways, but just based on the work of Roman and Jay, I'm looking to see that. Jay recently did an interview too and said that, we were right in our initial thoughts on the Clash of Champions match. That was supposed to be a one-shot deal. That was supposed to be a one-time deal where Roman just murders Jay, and that's the end of it. But because of how good the work was, they stretched it out to another match here, and that's a good decision that they made to stretch this out because it's been amazing TV. So I'm going Roman and Jay. Got no choice, man. Anyway, let's go back all the way up here to SmackDown now and talk about that from Friday night. This was billed as the season premiere, but the show, even though I thought it was good, they had Jeff Hardy on it, man. Like, this draft, I've been shitting on the draft ever since it was announced. I don't take drafts seriously. I think drafts are stupid. I think WWE does everything wrong with the draft, and this one was no exception. Nothing makes sense. They draft somebody to the new show, but then the next week they're back on the show they just got drafted away from. What are you doing? You shouldn't really have that many loose ends to tie up, and if you do, tie them up before the fucking draft. Why did Jeff Hardy have a match on Friday? That made no sense. I mean, New Day shouldn't have had a match either. Strowman shouldn't have had a match either. At least with New Day, you can set it up as the farewell, address or whatever, but you should have done that the night of the draft. They should have had their 6-man and their tearful promo and all of that. Just to bring them back, it just doesn't, it just diminishes the importance or the significance of the draft, because how can you take it seriously and say, oh, you're on Raw now, and you can never come to SmackDown when you can just come there the next week. And it kind of takes away from what I thought was just a fabulous promo, which we'll talk about in a second, with the New Day, of them saying goodbye and, talking about their history in the last 6 years together and how they're going to miss each other, but they could just still be on the same shows if they really wanted to. But I've got some ideas for the New Day, as we'll talk about in a minute. But SmackDown opened up with Triple H and Stephanie. They're in the ring. They got all the talent up on the ramp. So they're kind of introducing all of the new talent that was drafted from Raw over to SmackDown. And they brought them all out, the Street Profits and everybody else that got drafted or whatever, Seth Rollins and guys like that. And then they also started introducing guys that were already there, like Otis and Sami Zayn, and all that seemed weird to me. I think Robert Roode and Ziggler showed up and attacked the Street Profits, which sparked this gigantic brawl with everybody in the ring, and all the talent now is just fighting with each other, and that's kind of how they opened up the show. Triple H, one of the people he did mention in the promo with Stephanie was Lars Sullivan. Now, I don't know if you heard this because they only mentioned it one time, but they have a new nickname for Lars Sullivan, but they were way too subtle about it, and if you weren't paying attention, you probably missed it. But believe it or not, they're calling him the Freak. Yeah, the Freak. The Freak Lars Sullivan. They called this guy the Freak 22 times within the first 15 minutes of the show, which is WWE. I don't know why they have to beat this shit over your head. The only thing I can think of is this might be an internal rib, because they were so over the top with the Freak stuff. WWE always does this. They hammer home little catchphrases, buzzwords, shit like that all the time. A lot of this is personally and verbally directed right from Vince McMahon's mouth, that he wants the announcers to really sell this and sell it hard. And they always overdo it, and they do it to a point where they ruin it. Even if they find something that's good, they find a catchphrase or a nickname or anything like that the fans actually respond positively to, they completely ruin it and waste it and make it old within like 2 weeks. This happens all the time. Not that I'm saying the term freak for Lars Sullivan is like really over or great or anything, but my God, how many times in one breath can you literally call the Lars Sullivan the Freak? I mean, every word out of Michael Cole's mouth. The Freak Lars Sullivan with the clothesline, the Freak Lars Sullivan destroying Jeff Hardy, the Freak Lars Sullivan, the Freak Lars Sullivan. So part of me thinks it might be a little internal rib on him, based on some of the, the behavioral problems that he's had, shall we say, especially recently with him trying to coerced that girl in the Instagram DMs, and then some of the videos he was he was appearing in a few years back that was also uncovered. I don't know if that's some sort of WWE's way of fucking with the guy, but he's already had some like mental anxiety problems. That's probably not the best idea to rib this guy, because it might freak him out and he might go AWOL again. So I don't know. I'm not a Lars Sullivan fan. I don't like him. It's really tough for me to look past some of that stuff. Everybody has deserves the right to grow and learn from their mistakes. And I might have even been able to come around on him in time, but the fact that he seems to really have learned nothing, and after just being such a horribly racist and homophobic douchebag 10 years ago in those message board posts, one would think that he's grown up a lot since then and isn't that same person anymore. And then we find out just last weekend, that he's soliciting booty pics from some yoga instructor. The dude's gross. I don't like him, and I wish he wasn't going to be pushed, but he is. He's going to be pushed hard because he had a match with Jeff Hardy. Again, why the fuck is Jeff Hardy on SmackDown? Who knows? But he's there, and this was a borderline squash match. I mean, Jeff had some offense in. I think he hit a twist of fate and had Sullivan down a time or two. But for the most part, this was a showcase of Sullivan just being a badass monster. And Sullivan is a big, scary, hairy guy, don't get me wrong. But in terms of like big men and big, intimidating men, he's not even close to one of the biggest in my mind. He's dwarfed by guys like Braun Strowman. If he would have been around in the 80s, he would have been, he's the same size as like Ivan Putski or, some other just really big muscle-bound guy. He would have been dwarfed by so many guys like the Studs and the Bundys and the one-man gangs and the Andres, and so many, and Kamalas and so many bigger guys that existed, especially back in the 80s. How big is this guy really? He's huge in terms of wrestling guys like Jeff Hardy and Johnny Gargano and stuff. He had that great match on NXT a couple years ago where he just threw Gargano all the way in the crowd. So he's big and bad, and he's very, very strong, but he's not bigger than Brock. He's just I don't know why they're touting him as like somebody that's as big and as strong as the Great Khali or something like that. He's not really. He's just a big, strong guy, and that's about it. We haven't really even heard, kind of what he's like in promos. At least I don't remember what he's like from NXT. So anyway, he's there. They're putting him over huge. They don't seem to mind anything that's happened to him recently. So the Lars Sullivan push is in full swing. We'll see where that goes. But luckily, he's on SmackDown, and so he's not really going to be somebody that's going to be challenging Roman Reigns at the moment. We've got a heel Intercontinental Champion, so I don't know how close Gold is to this guy's future. I don't know. It feels like he's not going to be anywhere near titles, at least for the moment. And they might do the Ryback thing with him for a while and just have him beat guys until they stick him in a triple threat title match somewhere down the line. I don't know. So anyway, Lars wins. I really liked the New Day match and promo, even though I'm completely against them being there, even though I'm completely against drafting people and then bringing them back to that show the very next week, which I still think is just stupidly stupid. I did want to see this for a couple of reasons. Number one is that I'm a big New Day fan, and I've got my opinions on them and why I think this is really the best thing for them. But also, one of my favorite tag teams in recent history in WWE has been The Bar. And we got a Bar reunion here. I would love it now that Sheamus is on SmackDown if they reunited the Bar. And it was New Day taking on Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro, who are two current tag team partners, and Sheamus. So maybe Sheamus and Cesaro boot out Shinsuke and turn on him. Shinsuke can go back to being a babyface, and the Bar can reform. I loved the Bar. I would love to see them back. So anyway, New Day, obviously, in the six-man tag. They do win. Wasn't really about the match here. The match was never in question. You knew they were going to win. They're really the only talents I think that are like winning their farewell matches, because everybody else on their way out from their brand in the past couple of weeks has been going down in their matches hard. So everybody else has. So New Day was kind of the exception to the rule here. And this was pretty much going to be about the post-match promo. And that's what this was about. And, it captivated you. It really... it pulled on your heartstrings a little bit, because I love and enjoy the brotherhood between the New Day. And when they were each individually talking, just citing little specific examples of things that they're going to miss about being on the road together and things like that, and how they started, and how Xavier, proposed this whole idea 6 years ago, Kofi said he was on the verge of maybe even hanging it up and walking out around this time. And then they agreed to come together and give this thing a try. And we remember how it started here on the podcast. I used to say that something's wrong with the New Day. Whatever this new gimmick is, I don't like it. They're not connecting. They're missing something. And then they went heel and they kind of found their niche. And look at them now. I mean, it's been years and years of this, and we've been talking for a while now about the potential New Day split when that finally comes. And a lot of people are saying, oh, Big E should turn heel, kill the two of them, and go on a big singles push. But instead, I think WWE made the right decision here. For, very few things in wrestling last very long these days. Nothing, teams, factions, storylines, title reigns, they have very small shelf lives these days in modern times compared to the way they used to be back in the day. So to have a trio be together for 6 years, 7 years, whatever it's been now, in 2020 is something that's going to be really, really rare. And I'm glad WWE, because WWE, another thing that they tend to do these days is to shit on their history, and not care about continuity or follow through with angles and things like that. They seem to really take the New Day brotherhood seriously. Like they're valuing it to where they're not just going to do it the cheap way and have somebody turn or whatever. They want to push Big E. They want to give him a singles push. We all want that too. And they're going to keep the New Day together while doing it, but just putting them on separate brands. And that's really the best thing to do. You need to send Kofi and Xavier to Raw so Big E can be on his own and be on his own to breathe. And instead of doing like what they did with the Dudleys years ago when they did the draft, and then they kind of split them up, and then Devon was Reverend Devon and all this, it just didn't work, and the APA and things like that, just certain teams that they kind of split up randomly and it makes no sense. They are really keeping the brotherhood, the friendship together. That's going to remain intact. But from a professional standpoint, they're going to be doing their own things on their brands. And what I said right up front last week is that assuming the plan is here to put gold on Big E, if that's the future goal 6 months down the line, maybe even WrestleMania, if they're looking for somebody to take the title off of Roman and he has this long run, Big E's my candidate to do this. And now that, he's had his final New Day match, they won on Friday, and there's been talk of him getting some maybe different music, maybe somewhat of a different look, becoming a little bit more serious of a character. He's always going to have that charisma. He cannot lose that, at least as a babyface. But maybe back off of that a little bit and maybe focus a little bit more on being serious and having the charisma and the silliness be a backdrop to that, something that he can pull out every now and then. Because even The Rock, I think, overdid it with that stuff. Every single one of The Rock's promos, he's always got to have some sort of silly little name or some butt humor or potty humor, or something like that in it. And I sometimes thought that The Rock is such a badass, he doesn't need to do that all the time. He needs to bust out the funniness and the jokes when he wants to, when he can, but he shouldn't base his whole entire promo around that. And I think the Big E should kind of do the same thing. So I would like to see, we talked about this too, even recently, I would like to see a kicked up version of the New Day theme song, because I've always thought that the New Day theme song, it's missing something. It's not a very rounded out sound. There's these long gaps of silence, when the music starts. And remember back when The Rock, look at the way The Rock's heel theme evolved over the years with Jim Johnson. From the Nation days, and then he kind of got his own theme. Do you smell what The Rock is cooking? And then it got spiced up a little more with guitar bends in it, until you got to the 2002 theme, If You Smell, and it was just such a better sound. And I wish they would, because it was spiced up, they added some spice to the song. And I think that Big E, instead of getting a completely new song altogether, maybe give him a kicked up version of the New Day songs, kind of like back in the Nation days. The Nation had their theme, and then The Rock had his theme that was just a little bit different than the Nation's, but it was still the Nation. You know what I mean? Something like that is kind of what I hope they do with Big E. And if you're looking way ahead and you're looking for some sort of a babyface to beat heel Roman Reigns, can you think of a better option than Big E? I can't. And I think that would make WWE setting themselves up here for a really emotional reunion down the line. Now, well, like I've said, I've been pissed that WWE's drafting guys and then just bringing them right back to the brand the next week. I think with this, they need to really do their best to keep these guys as separated as possible. In their personal lives, they're still in the same building. They're still in the same town. Nobody's traveling right now. So their personal life will be fine behind the scenes. But in terms of on camera, I want to see these characters kept away from each other until like months down the line when there's some sort of a moment, whether that's Big E winning the Royal Rumble, whether that's Xavier and Kofi being in the Rumble with Big E and maybe helping him out, not turning on him and dumping him out, but maybe helping him, and if you don't do that, you get all the way to WrestleMania, Big E beats Roman Reigns, and the very first time that Kofi and Xavier and Big E have been on TV together since this past Friday night's farewell is WrestleMania, where they come in. And remember the great moment that Kofi had a couple of years ago? I think that would be magnified, 5 times if you do this moment with Big E and you do it this way. And I think about 20 with Benoit. He wins, and he's kind of standing there, and he turns around to see Eddie just waiting on the other side of the ring. Something like that. Big E beats Roman. He's getting the moment. He's celebrating. The confetti's coming down, and he's standing like maybe in the corner, maybe looking out into the audience, and he turns around and he sees Kofi and Xavier. Maybe they won the tag belts earlier on in the night or something for the 15th time. And they're standing there, and they're just clapping. You get the big 3-way hug, and you get that Benoit and Eddie moment, but you get it in the main event of WrestleMania 37 with the New Day, the 3 of them embracing confetti. Are you crying? I'm crying. I think that would be great. And that would be the first time you get those 3 guys in the ring together since last Friday. That's what I would do. So that's looking way ahead, and there's a lot of big ifs there. Who knows? WWE might not like the way the Big E push is going. They might want to turn Big E heel. I don't want them to. There's something, there's very few very genuine feeling things in wrestling. And this friendship between the New Day is genuine. You felt it in the promo. You could see it in their eyes. You could see it on their faces. This is all very real to them. So don't spoil it by, trying to give us a shock swerve by somebody turning heel. Unless they can do what they're doing with Roman and Jay. If they can turn this Roman and Jay magic into something with a New Day down the road, by all means, do a heel turn. Sign me up. But in the meantime, if you really don't have a good plan for something like that, keep them together and give us some feel-good moments. The world could use a moment like that at WrestleMania. Big E beating Roman Reigns, New Day celebrating, not a dry eye in the house type of thing, assuming there are fans there, or not a dry eye in the Thunderdome, type of thing, I think is just what wrestling needs right now. You know what I mean? So that's, like I said, that's looking way ahead. But if I'm booking it out, if I'm Pritchard, that's what I'm at least penciling in. I know nothing is for sure. You have no idea what's going to happen 6-7 months from now, but that's at least what I would have in my mind of where I want to go and book from there, but who knows? This is WWE we're talking about, and it's not like them to ever really do what we want. You know what I mean? We also had the return on Friday of Daniel Bryan. So glad to see him back. We had a feeling he would be coming back as he was drafted in the draft last week. So he comes out and he starts talking about all of the new faces and the new talent on SmackDown and how excited he is. But for some reason, he doesn't mention Seth Rollins' name, which brings Seth Rollins out. And I immediately said to myself, when have they wrestled before? Have they have it? I don't even know. I can't even think of any Seth Rollins and Daniel Bryan matches. I don't think they've had any on pay-per-views. Have they had any for titles? I don't even know. It just seemed like something that we're not used to seeing. And I'm like, I can get into this. And I thought they were going to bring the whole, Dominic and Ray stuff over and continue that. But it looks like they might be pivoting here and pushing Seth into a program with Daniel Bryan, which I think is going to be great. Daniel Bryan has not missed a step on the mic. Saying to Seth, basically saying what we say. He goes, "Your gimmick is dumb." He called it dumb. He spoke exactly the way I would speak on this podcast or something. He goes, "Your gimmick is dumb. This savior messiah crap is dumb." And then he said, your sports coat with no shirt underneath is dumb." And then Seth attacks him. They start brawling. That brings out Rey Mysterio and Dominic. They come out to the ring, and then all of a sudden Seth is like trying to get Daniel Bryan to fight with him. "Come on, you and me against them." And Bryan's like, "Fuck you, dude." And he gets out of the ring and leaves. And then Buddy Murphy comes out to assumingly stand behind Seth Rollins, but instead he attacks Seth, beats him up. Seth scurries away, and Buddy kind of has this awkward little stare down with Dominic and Ray, because everything that's going on with Aaliyah, that had to be a little bit awkward. So, they didn't attack each other or fight. Maybe Buddy's trying to convince them that he's really a good dude. and that their daughter is in good hands, as gross as that sounds. I don't know, but whatever it is, it seems like this could be the beginning of Bryan and Seth, which would just be such a nice breath of fresh air and get us away from the Mysterio stuff, and let Murphy and Seth have their match at some point, because Murphy, I guess, officially turned babyface on Friday by attacking Seth. So they'll have to have a match first, and you might have to tie all this together. There's so many pieces here still at play. I don't know how you can tie it together in 1 week. But if you can at least get Seth out of the situation and move him on to Daniel Bryan, I'd be into that. We have Hell in a Cell coming up in 1 week. I don't think it's going to be that quick. If I'm them, I'm not booking Seth and Bryan at the Cell yet in a match. Maybe wait on that. Maybe do Seth and Murphy next Sunday, and then Bryan and Seth can move into something on TV the following week. But it feels like the seeds are planted there, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I want to see more of that. Wow, not since the Shield days. For real? My God, that's been a long time. What if the New Day joins the Hurt Business? I don't want to see that. I think Kofi and Xavier are too fun-loving for that. I could see Big E there, because he's a big badass and stuff. But Kofi, I don't know. Kofi and Xavier, that would really take away. That would be ending essentially the New Day gimmick for a completely new gimmick. I don't know. I wouldn't do that. I'd keep them. I'd keep New Day. Rollins did look like a creep. Who wears a sports coat with no shirt? That's just absurdity. So WrestleMania 29, that would have been the six-man, Daniel and Kane and whoever the fuck against the Shield. Wow. I don't know, WWE fan. How long did I answer that one? That $2 super chat? How long Roman stays heel? I at least say until WrestleMania, maybe after, but minimum WrestleMania. I think he should. A guy like Roman is as strong as they're putting him over here. He can't really drop that belt prior to then. That needs to be where he drops it. So I would say WrestleMania. Maybe he loses and then maybe goes face after that. Maybe Brock comes back and attacks him or whatever. That could happen. So yeah, WrestleMania minimum. Here's 5 more from Stone Cold. What's up? Sullivan, to me, is what I call the generic big guy, a guy who's big and nasty and nothing else. Ryback, Ezekiel Jackson, Kozlov, Khali were others. Khali stood out because he was, 9'4". But yeah, the other guys, and Ezekiel stood out too because he was just a monster. But Ryback and Kozlov are good examples of just, big, strong guys that really can't offer much more than that. Yet, is he bigger than Ryback? I don't think so. Certainly not as muscular as him. Yeah, Sullivan does nothing for me, especially when they're putting him over in such a similar way to what they've done with other guys. They're doing very, very little different. They're not doing anything different. They're not treating him differently than they do whenever they get any other big guy over. They're using the same formula, and it's a formula that already doesn't really work unless it's with a really, really special person like a Brock Lesnar or like an Umaga or somebody like that. But with Umaga, I just loved. Rest in peace. But Sullivan, he can go fuck himself or his friend for all I care. I don't know, Jan. We talked a lot about all year long about The Undertaker making an appearance at Survivor Series this year because it does fall on the exact 30th anniversary of his debut. For them not to have any sort of Undertaker-related theme to this Survivor Series, I think would be a crime. So prior to COVID, we had all sorts of ideas. This is where I had Undertaker's official retirement taking place. I'd say he'll probably have another couple of matches and then maybe officially retire at Survivor Series. I don't think that's happening now. I think the match with AJ was it. So at least maybe commemorate the Undertaker's 30-year debut or 30-year anniversary on that day. I think months ago, I said, if they don't do a match or something with him, and we never got Sting and Undertaker, right? We never got Sting versus Undertaker. We should never get that match. I don't think we will get that match, but who's to say you can't have a face-to-face confrontation in the ring? Just something for fun, something for the fans to watch. I think a promo between the two, or just the two standing there looking at each other, would be much more entertaining than a match, right? Just for the fans to have that visual, so maybe for them to come together in the ring and have some sort of a promo together, or maybe a a mutual respect between two legends, then they can say we've agreed to never face each other. We don't need to know kind of thing, and just do it that way and make it like a kind of like I'm moving my head down because I always chop the top of my head off. Having something like that, I think, would be really special for Survivor Series. I would love to see that. But I hope they do something Taker related. They better. Ramon Coffee, what's up? When was the last time you played the Retron 5? Not long. I actually just hooked it up. It's sitting right there. I've got that plugged in with a lot of my plug and plays. Last time I put that in, I think I was playing some NBA Jam. You want to know something crazy for you old school video game fans? Something that I just started. I don't play video games. You guys know that. The only video games I ever played as a kid was like I played Atari growing up, like Space Invaders and Frogger and shit like that. I had a Pong console before the Atari. We had a Commodore. My cousin had a Commodore 64 that I played a little bit, and then I got a Nintendo in like the mid 80s, NES, where I played Super Mario Brothers and a lot of games on there. And then I graduated to a Sega Genesis and an SNES, and after that was the end of video games for me. No GameCube, no Nintendo 64, no Xbox, no PlayStation, no nothing. Never played anything like that after the early 90s. So, and one game that eluded me of all of the classic NES games, because I can play the shit out of the Marios and stuff, but you want to know one game that I never played that's viewed as one of, if not the best game to ever be on that console? Legend of Zelda. Never played Legend of Zelda. Didn't really get it. Even though for that time it really wasn't like an RPG, because I don't like sorcery and fantasy and shit like that stuff doesn't really interest me. I don't watch Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or anything like that. So I think in my mind I wasn't giving Legend of Zelda a chance. So I started watching some walkthroughs and some tutorials on the game, and I finally decided to tackle in my mid 40s Legend of Zelda. I've already gotten my first Triforce. I'm through the first level, and I'm trying to play, and I've got some help, like with the internet. I could never play this blind. I wouldn't have the patience for it. But using the internet as a little bit of a guide, I'm going to go through and I'm going to try to beat the game. And I've never played Legend of Zelda in my life, and I just started 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to pick that back up. I'm playing that on the NES Classic. So, there's save states there. You can save everything. So it's easy. And I'm working through that game. I'm going to see if I can beat it. And it's been fun so far. It's just kind of hard to get used to the controls when I'm so used to the Mario side-scrolling type of thing and the Contras and the Double Dragons and a lot of games that I played as a kid. The only other overhead view game that I can remember playing is Jackal and Gunsmoke. Gunsmoke was a really good game, but I was more of kind of a side-scroller type of guy, so it took some getting used to, but I think I'm pretty good. I'm a natural at some of these NES games. So for the first time in my life, I'm playing it. I'll let you know how my progress is and if I can actually beat the game. I can already tell, being on level 2, that there's going to be some frustrating parts of it, but I'm going to keep working on it. But it's an amazing game, especially for that time. It's so big and vast, and how far, how long it goes. Another game that I like that's underappreciated on NES and nobody ever talks about is The Goonies 2. It's much like Zelda in terms of a very, very large world that you have to navigate through, and it really helps to have a map, and you collect items and you can get locators and maps and try to find your way, and like in Zelda where you're trying to get the pieces of the Triforce, in the Goonies you're trying to rescue all the Goonies. It's a little bit similar the way it's set up, and if you never played Goonies 2 on NES, play that one. It's a lot of fun. I always enjoyed that. So anyway, we'll talk about Zelda 2 and all the other ones if I can get through Zelda 1. I never played Punch-Out either, and I never played Mario Kart, which is another game that everybody loves that I never touched. So even though I'm an old school NES fan, my library of games is still pretty small. I only liked maybe about 30 games, So even in my old school gaming, it's not like I was any sort of a pro or anything. You know what I mean? Anyway, where the hell did we leave off on SmackDown? We left off with Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins and all that stuff, right? Okay, so after that, we had the Sasha and Bayley contract signing, which was interesting. Sasha came out there looking like a star. That's all I'm going to say. Man, she was out there, little promo with Bayley, the table there, and our favorite GM, Adam Pearce, was there moderating that. His role seems to be getting a little bit more with each week. He's definitely playing a role on television and has an authority role sort of on TV. I thought he was going to be behind Retribution. I don't think that's the case now. But he's out there to head things up with Sasha and Bayley. Sasha, signs a contract. She cuts her promo, and then Bayley just refuses to sign it. She gets up and walks away while Sasha's calling her a coward the whole time. And she's like, I'm not signing. So this match is happening. They're not going to not do it. So that means this Friday on SmackDown, Adam Pearce, maybe it's going to be Postman Pearce, is going to have to show up at the doorstep of Bayley and say, sign this or you're going to forfeit your title. We'll see what they do to force her to do it. Maybe Sasha physically gets her to do it. Maybe she catches her in a situation where she's going to break her neck with a chair unless she signs a contract, and Bayley's like, okay, I'll sign it. I don't know. But in the end, Bayley will sign that. They will have the Hell in the Cell coming up next week, and I'm really looking forward to that match. I think Sasha's got to take it. I think Sasha's got to win that based on the story, but, we'll see. It's been over a year for Bayley. I can't see anybody else other than Sasha taking that title off of her. Feels like after all of this time to have somebody else end her run would just be silly. So this one maybe a little bit predictable, I suppose, if you guys would agree. I don't know. But yeah, I think Sasha's got to take it on Sunday. We'll talk about the Hell in the Cell card here in a minute. The main event, we saw the Universal title on the line. Roman Reigns taking on a Raw superstar in Braun Strowman for the title. You knew Strowman, this is a guy that was just Universal Champion a couple of months ago. He beat Goldberg at WrestleMania. By the way, where was Goldberg? Was he in the Thunderdome shit? I know Jeff Jarrett was there and maybe somebody else. There was some story on social media prior to Friday's SmackDown that Goldberg was going to be in the Thunderdome, and maybe they were setting up for Goldberg and Roman Reigns, but I don't have Goldberg written down anywhere in my notes here, so I don't know what his role was. But we had Strowman, taking on Roman Reigns. Nobody thought Strowman was going to win this match. He had no chance in hell of winning this match, and he didn't. It was good. These guys beat the hell out of each other for about 10 minutes. It wasn't as good as their matches were, 2 or 3 years ago when they had that great feud, but it was still good, showing a different side of Roman, how he was really taking it to and being more the aggressor on Strowman this time. And for the first time in his career, he wins with a submission. He chokes out in a guillotine choke Braun Strowman. I don't think Strowman tapped. I think he just passed out. Referee stopped the match, and Roman won that way. And then, he continued the heel beatdown on Braun Strowman after the match, wearing him out with a chair. And that's when Jey Uso hit the ring. And I loved this. Jey Uso comes out, and Roman Reigns does the thing where he puts the chair down and he turns his back, stretches out his arms and say, hit me, do whatever you want. He's offering Jey a chance to wear him out with the chair. Jey doesn't do it. Roman turns around, eats a super kick instead, and that's when Jey decides to grab the chair after he kicks Roman and starts hitting him with it. And when he's doing it, you can hear him say, I love you too, or whatever, as he's smacking Roman, which is amazing. The officials are out there. I think Jamie Noble's out there, maybe Adam Pearce, a bunch of other guys. I think Pat Buck. They pull Jey Uso off, and as they're kind of pulling him away, Roman recovers and jumps up and hits Jey with a big Superman punch to kind of close the show. And he stands there kind of frustrated, hit him with the Superman punch. He's like, man, that was your last chance. And he just stood there kind of staring I got to kill my cousin. I'm going to have to kill my cousin in 9 days. And he just does a great job of telling the story with his face. People who said Roman Reigns is bland and can't do anything are full of shit. He tells a great story without even doing a whole lot, which is, I know a lot of people aren't really high on the job that Bruce Pritchard is doing right now, but assuming he's in charge of all of this and he's overseeing a lot of these storylines, this has all been done brilliantly. And a lot of that is due to the work of Roman and Jey. Any two others kind of put in a similar situation like this, you might not be able to feel it as strong as you do with these guys. And I think that's why they stretched this out beyond Clash of Champions. And now they're putting the two of them in a Hell in a Cell. And they've made an extremely, and this is the brilliance of it, they've made an extremely intriguing match out of a match that we already know the outcome of. How many times do you see that situation play out? Where going into it who's winning, but you're just as excited to see the match as you were if you had no clue who was winning. Name me other examples of when that's happened, when you knew for sure. Because even with Rock and Hogan at WrestleMania 18, you didn't know for sure. You didn't know for sure with Bret and Austin. You didn't know for sure with a lot of big matches like that. This is a match to where it's more about the story than the outcome. Jey ain't walking out with the title. The bigger question is, we know he's not leaving with the title. Will he leave with his life? And that is awesome. And I'm ready to see that next Sunday. That's going to be fun. And it could be It could be tough to watch a little bit at times too, with how brutal it gets. It winds up getting, because this is in a cell this time. And what did we talk about last time prior to the Clash of Champions match? What did I say in like 3 straight podcasts in a row? If there's ever a time to bust out some blood and have Roman absolutely come within inches of ending his cousin's life in one of the most brutal, vicious attacks we've ever seen, this is when you do it. But we were all thinking that was going to be Clash of Champions. Now that they've extended this and put these guys with a fence around them, if you don't do it here, what the hell's wrong with you? So I think all of those ideas, the scenario we had for Clash, will be applied here to Hell in the Cell, is what I'm thinking. And I can't wait. It's going to be good. It's going to be so good. We're going to be reviewing it next week. I'll be live tweeting. I'll be drinking Stella, watching the show. I'm psyched. And props to Roman and Jay for restoring my interest in the Hell in the Cell. I've had a sour taste in my mouth about the Hell in the Cell pretty much ever since they painted it red. But after that, with the ridiculous finish to The Fiend and Seth Rollins last year, which I think just ruined the whole concept of the Cell, there's enough going on here to where I'm saying, okay, I'm interested in a Cell match again. And like I said, I'm kind of interested in all 3. I think Drew and Orton's going to be great. I think Sasha and Bayley will potentially steal the show. And Roman and Jay will tell a very emotional and potentially vicious story. Maybe even a sad one between the two of them. We'll see. Especially if we see other people come out, like Jimmy making another. I think we'll definitely see Jimmy come out there and try to, through the cage, try to convince Roman, not to kill him. And he'll do it anyway, kind of thing, like sacrifice him or whatever. I don't know. It could be gnarly, and I hope it is, because we need something like that. We just need some really good, juicy stories, and this one is. So overall, I thought for a couple of weeks in a row, SmackDown had a pretty good show. The rating was down just a touch. I think like 100,000 viewers, something like that. The season premiere drew a 1.986. This was down from 2.086 the previous week of the draft. So really they were down, but not much. That's virtually the same rating there. So not horrible. And like I said, they did a lot on the show. We had Daniel Bryan coming back. A lot of new talent is now on SmackDown. A great title match main event and a great story told after with Roman and Strowman and Uso. The Bayley Sasha stuff was good. New Day, tearful goodbye, to the fans and each other. It was one of the best things we saw all week. And all overall, SmackDown gets a C+, B- out of me. I thought it was a pretty good show. So props to them. We do have an announcement on SmackDown. They will be airing on FS1 next week. I guess that's due to the World Series, I guess, right? Because we got the Division Series going on right now. I think there's a Game 7 tonight. And who wrapped it up last night? Tampa Bay? Tampa Bay wrapped it up, and I think you got Atlanta and LA going in Game 7. So I guess that's being moved because of the World Series, right? So that'll be on FS1 next week. So just keep a lookout for that. In terms of Raw, we have Keith Lee and Braun Strowman set for tomorrow. Now, who did I just talk about last week? I was like, are they going to drop 2 matches in a row? Oh, it was Kevin Owens. When Kevin Owens faced, was Aleister Black, right? And but he had just dropped a match to The Fiend on SmackDown. I'm like, Owens isn't going to drop 2 in a row here. I feel like Strowman might be in that similar situation. Him and Lee, are they going to do another DQ with these guys and set them up for Hell in the Cell? Are we going to see Strowman and Lee in a Hell in the Cell pay-per-view match? And that's what they're setting up for here? Or does Strowman just beat Keith Lee? If Keith Lee beats him, can you use the word burial? I don't know. Probably not. The fans will, but can I logically use that? I mean, if he goes down twice, nothing wrong with losing to 2 studs like Roman and Lee, but 2 big losses on TV in 4 days isn't that great for a guy that was just your Universal Champion 8 weeks ago. So might be an interesting outcome tomorrow, but they might just go with the schmaz like they always do. Keith Lee, I don't know what the stat is, but of Keith Lee's like 8 matches on Raw, like 5 of them, something like that, has ended in a DQ or a count out. So please don't do that to us again tomorrow night, WWE. And as we saw last week on Raw, Lana came out of that Battle Royal as the winner. She's the new #1 contender to Asuka's title and will be challenging her sometime down the road. Now, we can only assume that match will be made official tomorrow night for Hell in the Cell. They're going to need a women's match on there as well. Lana better not win this title, and if they do the match at Hell in the Cell, there's no way she will. The focus needs to be on Bayley and Sasha and for that championship. But since she won the Battle Royal, technically now she gets a title shot, and then she posted something on Twitter. It's a real sexy picture of her in a bikini or something like that, and she says I'm campaigning to be Raw Women's Champion. Vote for me by liking this post. I'm like, that's not really how it works. And by the way, if you're campaigning and we have to vote for who's champion, I would like to see a ballot, please, because I'm going to be voting for someone else, not you. Even though I like Lana, it's like the Zelina thing. I like Zelina Vega too, but I was almost insulted that she was being treated as a credible champion to Asuka. It'd take Asuka 5.5 seconds to whoop her ass. And it should be the same thing here with Lana. And Asuka laughs at her on social media. So then Lana releases a video, like an emotional video where she's like crying and saying, nobody believes in me and you're all mocking me and you're all making fun of me and I'm going to show you and I'm going to win the title. No, you're not. The only way Lana is winning the title, and this is actually a legitimate possibility here, is if it's some weird back-assed way to troll Miro. Like, oh, we're going to make your wife champion before you ever touch gold over there. And we're going to talk about Miro in a minute and what he did on Dynamite this past week. A lot of people said he turned heel, but he was kind of already one. Even though he'd been working with baby faces, just the way, he was probably going to be heel anyway. And maybe the way all that came together, some fans were critical of that. But, Miro and Rusev has the ability to get anything over. When he's given nothing in WWE, he gets it over anyway. So this could be a big test for him in AEW to see if he can pull off the same type of thing when they're not really giving him that great of a situation, and if he can make it, if he can get it over anyway. Rusev is dripping with charisma, and I think the guy can do anything. So I'm not too worried about Miro in AEW, but maybe this is some sort of a way for WWE to fuck with him. At first we saw Lana going through the table like 4 weeks in a row with the Samoan drop from Nia Jax, like table through table. So I'm like, are they burying this poor guy's wife just to fuck with him? And now it might be going the opposite way. They might even slap the title on her. But that would be a pretty shitty thing to do that to a champion like Asuka, take the belt off of her just to put it on Lana, just as a rib to somebody in the other company. I think that shits on your belt, especially when that belt has had some pretty good credibility. Think about the last champion. Who's the last 3 champions have held that belt? Rousey, Becky, Asuka. Not too shabby. You don't want to fuck that up now by throwing Lana in the mix. That would just be silly. So I'm kind of hoping they book Lana and Asuka for Hell in the Cell, and I hope Lana gives up during instructions. That's how quick I want the match to be. While the referee is making the announcements, she submits. That's as long as I want the match to go. That's an old Bobby Heenan line. What would your advice be in this match? During instructions, you give up. That's just what she should do. So anyway. Raw will be possibly interesting tomorrow. We'll see. And make sure you join us after the show. Full ass review. Let me, before we get into the Wednesday Night Wars, and then we'll wrap up business here, let me cruise up and knock out any more super chats, because I know I got one from Spaz Phoenix that just came in. Let me see. Before that, I think I got everybody. Ramon, I nailed you. I answered you. You know what I mean. Spaz Phoenix, welcome back. Go check out Spaz Phoenix's YouTube channel right now. He's got a great channel over there, and he talks all about all sorts of wrestling, specifically NXT. Hey, Greg, haven't caught you live in a while. What the hell's wrong with you, man? Hope you and your chat are well in these trying times. We're hanging in there. I've set a small goal for myself of 1,100 subs by the end of the downer year. Every little bit helps. Yes, I just said that. Go over to Spaz. I don't know how far away you are from 1,100, what you're sitting at these days. But go over there and show Spaz some love. You can never subscribe to enough wrestling people, because, we all offer all sorts of different opinions and perspectives on things. And if you just limit yourself to watching one person, you start thinking only one way. So it's always good to have different perspectives from anybody who has a clue what they're talking about. And I think Spaz does. So go check them out. And by the way, you can help me out too by smashing that thumbs up, because our likes are a bit on the low side. Hook a brother up. Good to see you, K-Dog's Kennel. Shouted you out earlier on during the Patreon stuff. Happy you're here. And good to see you as well. Ram Vin Yiro. I'm all good. Thank you very much as well for joining me today, a day late than we normally do here on the podcast. All right, let's get into Wednesday night stuff now. Now, with these two shows, I'm not going to go through match by match. I'm only going to talk about a few things on NXT. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about AEW, because they did have 4 count 'em title matches on that show, and a couple of them were interesting. But we're going to pretty much blow through NXT here, because there wasn't too much on there interesting, other than a couple of things. Number one, Finn Balor. We're still a little bit worried and still not sure what the situation with the NXT title is going to be. Finn Balor had surgery on his broken jaw. They showed some footage of that and how busted he was and his incision and the stitches and all that crap. This title is just cursed right after, Karrion Kross gets injured. They put the belt back on Balor, and then he breaks his jaw. They are trying their best, it appears, to not have to forfeit this title a second time. William Regal said that they're going to reevaluate and check things out in a couple of weeks and see where Finn Balor is. I think WWE wants to do everything in their power not to have to do this again. Because if they now, if Karrion forfeits and then they make an interim champion and then he forfeits, what does that even say about the next guy that's even going to hold that title? You know what I mean? He's literally, if Balor wasn't this already, the next guy's literally going to be a placeholder for when either one of these two, likely Kross, comes back. So I think they're doing the right thing here by waiting it out and seeing how it goes, because you don't want to strip him unless absolutely necessary. But it's still possible that they're going to have to do that. I hope not, man. I really hope not. I hope they can bend some rules or do something to where, Balor can at least come in and just maybe even work a quick match or something. I don't know, even if he's not quite healed up, but he can get in there. Just be careful with him. Don't hit him in the face. Let him have one quick good match that goes 4 minutes where he beats somebody with a coup de grace, just to give him some ring time and to allow a little bit more time to where you don't have to worry about that 30-day nonsense for champions or whatever. But, we'll see. Fingers crossed for Balor that he's able to come back, because the last thing I or any of us, I think, want to see is that title being forfeited again. We had some big news coming out of NXT in regards to Halloween Havoc. Now, Halloween Havoc will be 1 week from this Wednesday coming up, and we're getting 2 title matches on that show. We're getting Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano are both getting takeover rematches. So Candice is going to take on Io Shirai. Johnny Gargano is going to take on Damian Priest for the North American title. I predicted that Candice would win the title at TakeOver. And then when she didn't, when they both lost, I thought the Garganos were going to be called up to the main roster. That didn't happen either. So now they're back to giving these 2 title shots again. And let me ask you this. If they're going to give Candice and Johnny title shots at Halloween Havoc after they just had 2 title shots at TakeOver and came up short, are they really both going to lose again? Doesn't this pretty much guarantee that we're getting a title change of some kind on the show? And if we are, who's it going to be? Priest coughing his up or Io Shirai coughing hers up? I think it's going to be Io. I think it's going to be Io because, if you're looking ahead to where, it's going to be somebody like Rhea Ripley, getting her title back or something like that, I think she's got to work with a Io and Ripley match would be more fun and better, I think. But Ripley would be able to work with a heel like Candice. And I even mentioned a couple of weeks ago when I initially predicted Candice to win the title, I said, wouldn't it be fun in the build if Johnny Gargano and Rhea Ripley got into it and she whooped his ass? I think that would be pretty funny. Maybe even do a home invasion type of thing where she shows up there and throws him through the window like Triple H did to Orton. I don't know. But Candice defeated Shotzi Blackheart for the opportunity to get this title match. So it was like a number 1 contenders match, and she got help from Indy Hartwell, who they talked about the week before when she bought them a new TV and showed footage of how many times she helped out Candice in the Battle Royal. And Candice said that she's impressed with her and she's starting to like her. Indy shows up there during the match, passes Candice some brass knucks. She nails Shotzi, gets the win, and she now will challenge Io Shirai at Halloween Havoc. And I think she's going to win the title. I think one of them has to. Otherwise, what's the point of having those 2 matches from TakeOver again on Halloween Havoc on a show that you want to stack up, that you want to make good, and you want to go, head-to-head with AEW and possibly even beat them in the ratings this time around? Just to do 2 rematches with the same 2 outcomes, I think it would be silly. I think they're definitely setting themselves up here for a title change. And between the 2, I think Candice has a better shot than Johnny does. But there's also a big stipulation in these 2 matches. Both of them are going to be spin the wheel, make the deal matches. They are bringing this back. This was an old Halloween Havoc tradition back in the day where they'd spin the wheel of all these crazy-ass matches. Or some of the matches on there, I should say, are Halloween Havoc traditions. And they have the listing of all the matches, and I wrote down all the ones I could read. Shotzi Blackheart, by the way, was the one. She was on the opposite side of the stage unveiling this whole thing because she's going to be the host of Halloween Havoc next week. So the match possibilities here are Boiler Room Brawl. We've got a Shotzi's Choice match, which is interesting. I guess she'll get to pick whatever kind of match she wants if it lands there. for those opponents. Weapons Wild match. We've got a tables, ladders, and scares match and a trick or street match. Wink, wink. Coal miner's glove on a pole. We've got a casket match. We've got a Devil's Playground match. We have a blindfold match, and the creme de la creme, the Chamber of Horrors match. We could actually see a Chamber of Horrors match on the show. Now, with this wheel, it's almost like Raw roulette. I don't know if if they really are letting it fall wherever and they're going with it, or because this is probably taped, if they can edit this in such a way and they can just keep filming segments, they can just keep filming the wheel being spun until they get it to land on what they want to land on or whatever. So I'm not sure how that's going to happen. If they do something insane like a Chambers of Horrors match, I don't think they're really going to be strapping anyone to an electric chair, but it's interesting that is one of the options there. I think the casket match is also really interesting. That could be good for Damian Priest. Like Priest and Gargano, when I look at all these possibilities, I wouldn't want to see a Boiler Room Brawl with them, but a casket match would be good. Maybe even Devil's Playground, whatever that means, might be fun with those two based on the gimmick of what's his face, of Damian Priest. I don't know what tables, ladders, and scares means. I don't know if scares is just a funny name for chairs and it's just going to be your typical TLC match, or if they're going to have things that scare the opponents during the match. People dressed up like Freddy Krueger or Jason or something like that and coming out and scaring them during the match. I don't know, but it's fun. Like, that's the bottom line here. It's fun, and we'll see how that plays out with Candice and Io. I think it's good. I think you could set yourself up here to where the stipulation could actually help Candice. We've seen a lot of help lately, like we said, from Indy Hartwell. So if there's some sort of a match where there's no rules, Candice can get all the help that she wants. It could also backfire on her and she could lose. But I think if I had to guess, we're going to see a title change on the 28th. And between the two title matches, I think my money's on Candice. Just me personally. Let me know what you think. Spaz, thanks for 5 more. If NXT don't book Shotzi versus Ember for Havoc, they're missing a great opportunity. Yes, I'm biased. I don't care. They feel like they're natural opponents there. Shotzi is going to be playing the role of the host, so I don't know if maybe they're going to have her in a match as well. I even thought on NXT, I don't know how I would have felt about this if I watched it live, because I didn't watch it live. But if I was, I would kind of think that Candice and Shotzi was spoiled a little bit because Shotzi was the host and she's doing that. So Candice is probably going to get the title shot. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but if they don't book it for Halloween Havoc, then book it down the road. But in terms of, the two characters and how animated they are, Halloween Havoc would make a really awesome backdrop for Shotzi and Ember. And I think the match would be good. How about Ember? She did have a promo on NXT on Wednesday that I didn't much care for. But her match the week before, her return match, and she hit one of the best eclipses I've ever seen. Made me so happy to have her back. But yeah, Shotzi and Ember, for Havoc, I think that would be fun with the two of them as well, to have a story, because they're baby faces, right? Both of them. So someone would have to turn there or something. Or maybe Ember's a heel. I don't know. Ember, I think, would be better heel in that situation, and really make a story between the two, and don't just throw two people together and say, here, wrestle and have a couple of matches. Like, give them a story, give them an angle. I think they can have fun with it. Shotzi and Ember. So I am all for that idea, Spaz, all the way. It looks like they've also pivoted a bit with the Ridge Holland stuff. The poor guy, we saw him suffer that devastating injury last week where he exploded his leg. He's going to be out until 2045. So he ain't going to be coming back anytime soon. And it seems like now they haven't really totally abandoned the storyline. It looks like they've made it out to where Undisputed now needs to find out who hired Ridge Holland. Where before it kind of looked like he attacked on his own, but since he's out now and he can't fulfill the angle, they're going to put someone in his place. And they're going to make it to where somebody hired him to attack Adam Cole on their behalf, and that will be the angle. Now, you have a golden opportunity here to do a heel turn within the Undisputed Era. Kyle O'Reilly is also injured. He's not cleared to return yet, but if it turned out to be him, that would be great. We've seen a couple of small teases of dissension internally within the Undisputed Era, even as recent as last week, I think. So you could have Roderick or Fish or one of those guys be the one that, or it could be all three of them, that hired Ridge Holland to attack Adam Cole, and Undisputed attacks him and kicks him out of Undisputed, or it could be O'Reilly acting on his own. I don't know, but I think that would be the best option to where this storyline goes, unless it's, somebody completely new or random or something like that. I don't know, but looks like that situation will continue. I didn't see an update on Ridge Holland at all on NXT. I don't know if they offered one or if I missed it, but assuming, that he's gone through all of his surgeries and he's convalescing at home, and he's probably not feeling too hot, we wish Ridge Holland the best, because that was horrific. Two other matches that stood out this past week on NXT for me was Toni Storm coming back, and she beat Aaliyah in pretty short order there. Only took her a couple of minutes. What do you guys think about Aaliyah in NXT? Do you think they'll change her name or anything? Because, what happens if over on SmackDown, Aaliyah Mysterio gets in? Not that you can't have two Aaliyahs, but they made Shane Helms change to Gregory Helms because they didn't want two Shanes and shit, in WWE. So, do you think Aaliyah in NXT, her name could be at risk due to Aaliyah Mysterio being involved in the storyline? Just a random question I put in my notes here because it made me think of that. So it's good to see Toni Storm back. She's a star, and she, like I said, she adds a lot, and she'll be getting future title matches down the line. I think it would be really cool to see a Toni Storm and Rhea Ripley rematch. Didn't Toni beat Ripley for the UK title a couple years ago? So if Rhea is able to have her feud with Candice, beat Candice, you set up Rhea and Toni, vastly different spots in their careers than they were when Toni beat her. That could be fun, kind of rematch down the line for the women's division there. So something to think about. Main event, I think it was the main event, was Damian Priest taking on Dexter Lumis. That match was also good. Really liked that. Even Cameron Grimes coming out in the end. But Damian looked really good in that match, and you guys all know I love Dexter Lumis. So that was good. Like the Toni Storm stuff. I love the return of Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal. And I think they've set themselves up pretty decently for Halloween Havoc, with some fun stuff. But overall, NXT is not really... they're not really setting the world on fire right now. Some of it is not their fault. They've been riddled by injuries. The Karrion Kross, story was halted before it started, and now Balor's got the busted jaw. And they're trying to pull some fun shit out of their ass here for Halloween Havoc. But for the most part, I feel like NXT's struggling a bit, just at least with me. So, but I want that to change. And I've got high hopes for Halloween Havoc just because I'm an old school guy. I can't wait to see the set that they do. I hope they bring out a big pumpkin. They better have, some sort of crazy match come out of the Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal stuff. I'm ready for it. Anyway, we'll see. Before we move on to AEW, let me cruise up here. I think I got another super from, Ram Vaniro. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But thank you, man, for the $10. I appreciate it. Hey, Greg, have you taken a look at the Ring of Honor Pure tournament? No, I haven't. I know it's off topic, but I haven't heard your thoughts. No, I'm not familiar with that. I kind of suck at keeping track of stuff like that. I had to kind of sacrifice, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast here, I kind of had to sacrifice the G1 because I was just so busy moving and transitioning and working and all of that. And I watched the first couple of nights, and then I had to say, F it, I'll watch the final, and that's the best I'm going to be able to do, which if I didn't have so much going on, I would have paid far closer attention to that. So I'm trying to get back in the swing of things. So if you have anything you want to send me, you got a link, you got a match, you got anything like that, you say, you got to see this, send it over. I'll be happy to watch it. I rely on you guys a lot to do that sometimes, to be honest with you. How about The Rock tweeting out a picture of him wearing a hurricane face mask? It was awesome. I love their bromance after all these years. Helms is a good dude. I follow him on Twitter. He's really funny. And I think he's always just been extremely appreciative of, The Rock going out of his way to help him back in the day, all those years ago. Because it meant a lot, it meant a lot. And it's still, here nearly 20 years later, it's something that's still really well remembered. The little run-ins on television they had. What was it, 2002, something like that, with those guys? Just fun. And I think Helms has always appreciated it and always appreciated the gesture from The Rock. Somebody of his stature that didn't have to do that, to went out of his way to help make an undercard guy. Which is really cool of The Rock, and they've remained tight ever since then. I think it's so cool. Anyway. Let's move on to AEW from this past week, because this was a good show, although there were a couple of head-scratching moments in it. This was being billed as their 1-year anniversary show. They've been on TNT now for a year. I think it's been a great year. I mean, despite the fact that they've had more COVID era shows than non-COVID era shows, we only got, 5 months of Dynamite on TV before all this happened. So maybe even less than that before they finally had to, because I think Revolution was the last pay-per-view they had with fans, and then by late February and then early March it was over. So I guess they only had 4 full months on TV. So you're probably looking at somewhere like, 4.5, something like that. I don't know. They weren't on TV long with fans before everything had to be changed. And even despite that, I thought that they handled things, at least at first. WWE's really stepped up their game with the Thunderdome and now the Capitol Wrestling Center and everything with NXT. All that looks great. But at first, AEW had a much better environment. They had a much better setting. Daly's place was doable. It was open air. It just had a better look and feel if you're going to do something with no fans. And then they started slowly incorporating fans. They were the first ones to put, talent on the outside of the ring to offer a little bit of noise. They seem to be really ahead of the curve in terms of dealing with something this bad, and I gave them a lot of credit for that. But at the same time, things haven't been the same without fans there, but they've managed to maintain. I'm going to give them a pass on anything that they're doing with the ratings. The fact that they're still they're winning every week, but they're drawing such shit ratings, it's not even over 1 million viewers or whatever. A lot of that also probably does have to do with the pandemic era and the fact that every single show looks the same with both of these companies. And we just, continuously have to deal with no fans being there. So it's been a year. I think it's been a successful year. The Dynamites, for the most part, you guys have heard me review virtually all of them in the past year. I've had positive things to say about 90% of the Dynamites that have happened in the past year. There's only been a couple where I feel like they kind of missed the boat, or a couple of shows that were a little bit lackluster here or there. Otherwise, for a one-year company, a company that just started up, I thought they've performed well on TNT. I hope TNT is happy with them and keeps them around for a while, because I do not want to see the little bit of competition we have to WWE right now. I don't want to see that go. I don't want to see that compromised. I'm glad that they got money behind them. Tony Khan seems invested. Talent seems to really like it there. We've heard multiple stories about just the, kind of the stress-free environment. You got more room to breathe, be your own person. You're not so micromanaged and ridiculously controlled in every aspect of your life. And it's just, if you're somebody that just is mentally burnt out or has a lot of high anxiety or stress in the business from your time in WWE, this is like a vacation. Being in AEW is like a resort, apparently, compared to what some of these people have had to deal with. So in terms of that, I think AEW is awesome. They entertain me. I think that any criticisms of them are generally based on from like a biased perspective. You hear Jim Cornette, who's got little nicknames for every single wrestler there. He comments on wrestlers being small, when they're bigger than some of the people he managed, like that, and shit like that back in the day. So he's, he just has a lot of hate in his heart for some reason. And I can't imagine why any wrestling person, period, would hope for a wrestling company's failure. That just seems horrifically immature. And now that they've been around for a solid year, I think it's been a successful year. And of all of these weeks that they've gone head to head with NXT, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. But if there's 52 weeks in a year, what have they won? 42 weeks in the ratings or something? How many times has NXT really beat them? So you can't look at that as anything else other than a success. Yeah, they can be obnoxious a little bit with the ratings bragging and the Jericho and his demo god stuff, but what do you expect? It's no worse than what TNA did with Cookie Gate and hanging on WWE's every word and becoming a carbon copy of them. It's no worse than WCW being obsessed with WWE, Eric Bischoff giving away the results of every Raw, bringing in every former WWE star they can possibly get his hands on and parading them on his TV. And when it comes to all of those really, really bad offenders, I think AEW, while they take their shots at WWE here or there, which you have to, they don't come across as obsessive the way TNA did and the way WCW did. And some fans feel that they are. I personally, because I remember history, I feel that they don't. And when you compare them to them, I think that they haven't crossed the line. They've gone up to the line. They've done a couple of things. I'm like, was that shot really necessary? But they haven't crossed over anything, in my book. Maybe the most extreme thing I think they did was when Cody kind of bashed the throne with the sledgehammer. Maybe that was a bit much, but I don't think it was bad taste or offensive or way outside the realm of what they should be doing. I think companies have done far worse to each other. And hell, WWE does far worse too, just by holding wrestlers hostage and not letting them out of their contracts just so they can't go to AEW. To me, that's much worse than holding somebody's life hostage. To me, that is 100 times worse than AEW taking some little shot at WWE on TV. So AEW, congrats on a great first year. You have my total undying support. I think the company's great, just like I think WWE is great on a lot of levels as well. I'm just a wrestling fan, and I just want somebody else to be there. I need something else to look at other than Raw and SmackDown and NXT. AEW gives us that, and they give it to us well. So I'm impressed and I'm satisfied with the first year. Compared, based on everything, 2020, pandemic, all this horrible shit we've been dealing with in the past year, AEW has been able to maintain an interest from the wrestling audience, and to me, that goes a long way. So, congrats to them. And like I said, they had a year-long run, or they had 4 title matches for their year anniversary here. They kicked off with probably the weakest of the 4. No, I'm sorry, second weakest. I think the women's match was the weakest, but this was booked kind of weird. It was FTR defending their titles against the Best Friends. This match was set up last week. Best Friends had, I guess, gotten the title shot based on what they did in the parking lot brawl, I think. I forgot how this was set up. But anyway, the finish here was really strange. The first big thing they did was, I think it's Trent and Cash start brawling on the outside of the ring. And for some reason, out in the, where the fans are, you've got Kip Sabian there playing an arcade cabinet, playing one of Miro's arcade cabinets. Now, we know Miro is a big video game guy. Just a couple weeks ago, I never mentioned this on the podcast, but a couple of weeks ago, they brought on, is his name Billy Mitchell, right? Billy Mitchell. Now, I actually know who this guy is because there are some YouTube gaming channels that I watch, and I've heard about this asshole before. This guy is horrible. He looks like it. His face just drips douche right out of it. He's got this horrible, dumb, douchey face, this ridiculous haircut, and he's the most cocky, arrogant son of a bitch I've ever seen. Why is he cocky and arrogant? Because he's good at Donkey Kong. And the motherfucker cheated and was proven to have cheated on all of these high scores. And he was removed from the Guinness Book of World Records. And then he won some sort of appeal where he got put back in or something. And he's almost flaunted his cheating to everybody. And he's a jerk off. Like, he's the exact type of guy where you're like, what kind of a social life did this guy have as a kid? This guy must have grown up with no friends. He'd probably never seen a tit, no girlfriend, no nothing. Nobody should behave this way. He just comes off as an ass. He comes off as a douche. He's a jerk, and he's cocky, and he has no reason to be. He's an ugly, skinny, mullet-wearing freak, and he's going to be cocky like he's God's gift to the world or something? Fuck you, Billy Mitchell. So they bring him out on TV for some reason a couple of weeks ago, which I thought was weird, basically playing into Miro and his love for video games and all the streaming that he does. And now they got an arcade cabinet there on the outside of the ring that Kip Sabian is playing. Trent goes to spear Cash, I think. Cash moves, and the arcade cabinet just gets destroyed, just gets knocked over. Why it's there in the middle of the aisle, I don't fucking know. That seemed a little bit stupid. If they wanted to do a deal where they broke the arcade cabinet, you should do that backstage. Have the arcade cabinet in the locker room and have 2 wrestlers brawling into it, and then it gets smashed, and then Miro gets pissed. To have him do this here was strange. And then they have a chance to get like a win here. I think after Trent goes through the cab, Sabian's pissed. He's telling Penelope to go tell Miro, go find him. So she goes off to do that, like Elizabeth going to get Hogan. Cash picks up and tries to carry Trent back to the ring because he doesn't want the count out victory, which was weird. And then they do the weird finish with the ref to where he does this duck down thing, and then they hit Chucky with the belt, and he winds up getting pinned. Just for them to not want the count out, just to get a cheap win anyway. That whole thing seemed weird. So FTR won the title, or retained the titles there. I think you could have done that a whole lot easier. I think you could have had the match first, done your winner, done your cheap win, cheap victory for FTR, and then do a spot with the arcade cab instead of trying to incorporate that into the match. One thing I will say that AEW has been guilty of, especially in tag team matches, is overbooking the hell out of them. Doing 10 or 15 more things that they need to really get this match done. And it's just a case of them overthinking it. Probably too many ideas, too many fingers in the pie. A lot of people giving their 2 cents, and then they just try to do everything, and try to simplifying some of these fractions and try to clean up the mess a little bit and saying, okay, how can we do this, but do it a little simpler or change some things around? I don't think they really had that thought process here. A little bit more was going on that need to be. But anyway, FTR wins. They leave. Miro then comes out and destroys the Best Friends because they broke his arcade cabinet. Now, a lot of people were like, this is a heel turn for him or whatever. I kind of thought he was already heel. Right after that, him and Kip teamed up to beat the hell out of Lee Johnson and Sean Maluta in a tag team match. And Miro was very dominant in that. So he now is going to, I suppose, maybe him and Kip, going to start a feud with the Best Friends, which is weird because the Best Friends just had a feud with Proud and Powerful over what? A minivan. Now they're going to have a feud with Kip and Miro over an arcade cabinet. That's weird, right? So kind of weird that all of their feuds tend to be this way. Now, the minivan stuff was great. We all became a huge fan of Sue. I liked a lot of stuff that Proud and Powerful did with the Best Friends, and the parking lot brawl was amazing. So who's to say this isn't going to work? I think it can or whatever. And like I said earlier, Miro has the ability to get anything over. You give this guy a plate of shit, that plate of shit will get a bigger pop than most mid-cards in wrestling. He will make it happen. So this is a big test for him to see if he can do a lot of that WWE magic. Hey, Rusev, here's this stupid idea, and then Rusev makes it hilarious. So let's see if Miro can take what on the surface seems to be a really stupid idea. You're going to start a wrestling feud over an arcade cabinet is weird, but I think Miro is just good enough to make it work. So we'll see. As of right now, I don't like it, but we'll see if it gets better as we go. Let me just acknowledge 30 quick dollars here from Spaz, who's just chimed in with 20 and then another 10 on top of the 10 and 20 you've already done. Thank you very much, Spaz, for being quite the sponsor this week. Let's answer your $20 one first. NXT should shelve the title. Announced that Balor Cross both had to drop it with losing, so when they are both cleared, they will fight. In the meantime, the main event scene can be held up by that stacked women's division. That is a good idea. I would prefer that scenario over crowning a new champion. And like you said, you can move other belts up to the forefront there. You can move the women's title up to your main title right now. Even the North American title, can have a bigger role maybe on TV until they're done. That would be the best way to do it. Balor and Cross will do a match down the road. Neither man is champion. The championship is vacated again, but we'll have a match when they're both cleared and the winner gets it. That's probably the best. That's the best way to do it. I think it's just a matter of WWE will, or if they'll feel like they got to have the title on TV. But I feel like they could diminish the value of the title by making yet another kind of paper champion or transitional champion to carry that. That's a good idea. I should have mentioned that earlier on. But yeah, just make the women's title your forefront. Maybe especially if Candice wins. What if Candice and Johnny both come out with gold? Maybe that's what they're setting up here for. Maybe they both lost at TakeOver. I still don't see Damian Priest losing the title this quickly after winning it. But the North American title, then again, a lot of those reigns weren't very long. I don't think Ricochet held the belt very long. Gargano didn't hold the belt very long because he's already held it. So a lot of those runs have been short. It just feels like they want to do more with Damian Priest. He's got the thing with Cameron Grimes. So you could see Cameron get involved there, especially next week. It's going to be a spin the wheel match. So there could be a stipulation to where there's no disqualification. So you could have Cameron Grimes come out, help Johnny Gargano. If Johnny and Candice both win, they can steer the ship on their own. They can be the focal point of the shows. That would set them up perfectly for stripping Balor and waiting to do Balor and Cross at the end of the year for the title. And you can let Johnny and Candice kind of be your main characters on NXT every week, and the whole show can kind of revolve around them and their title matches and their title feuds. That's a great idea. That's what I would do. WWE, if you're listening, take Spaz's idea there. And thanks again for 10 more, dude. Have you heard the rumor that they are going to book Sullivan in some stupid redemption story? Like he has rage issues based on folks not forgiving him for social media blunders. I haven't heard that. A redemption story for Sullivan. Redemption stories feel like they're for baby faces. They were doing the redemption story just recently with the guy he beat on Friday with Jeff Hardy. I don't know if that would work for him. That would be so weird. I don't know, though. I think that would be a stretch based on, I don't know if, because one thing that would do, if they went in a storyline with that, and the redemption is because of the rage issues, because of the people not forgiving him for social media posts. What that does is draws attention to those social media blunders, draws attention to a casual fan saying, what the hell are they talking about? Let me Google it. It's not what you want. You don't want more people knowing about what a racist piece of shit this guy was 10 years ago. I think the least amount of people know about that, the better, and drawing attention to it is not what you would want from a PR perspective if I'm WWE, but you never know. I think just maybe if they do a redemption story with something manufactured, like rage issues or something like that, maybe. But that's a little bit too much real life, I think. It's a subject that's pretty sensitive. Not that they've refrained from touching on sensitive subjects before. That's just one that then again, right after the speaking out movement, and right after Seth's Peckergate of 2015, they're doing the deal with Aaliyah, and she's only 19 and Buddy Murphy's 32, and Seth Rollins is revealing private messages, between the two of them. Doesn't this all sound kind of familiar? So they were dumb enough to do that. So maybe your idea would work there. I like the Balor and Cross idea much better though. That is definitely the way to go, for sure. Hey, Colin, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for being here. It's been a while. Smash that thumbs up while you're here. Smash it hard. Hey, the villain, what's going on? Appreciate the 5 as well. I've heard rumors that Big E is to win the Rumble and challenge Roman at WrestleMania 37. My man, earlier on in the podcast, we talked all about that possibility. Winning the Rumble would be great way to launch him into the Mania 737 main event. I don't think he necessarily needs to win the Rumble to get the title match against Roman, but it definitely would work. And we talked all about Big E and his potential singles run, where it could go, a change of theme music, and what you do with the other New Day members between now and then. And I said you keep them completely away from each other. No interaction on TV, no backstage segments, no brand-to-brand invitational, no wild card rule, no nothing. Keep these guys away until something big warrants a reunion, like a Big E title win. And I mentioned, I drew comparisons to WrestleMania 20. If you do a moment there with Big E and Roman, Big E wins in the main event. He's got the title. There's confetti coming down, and he turns around just like Benoit turned around at 20 to see Eddie standing there. But he turns around to see Kofi and Xavier standing there. And say, for example, earlier on in the night, they won the tag team titles again for the 100th time. They've dropped them and won them back 6 times since then. But come WrestleMania, they win the titles earlier on in the show, and then Big E has his moment, and you do this big, like, triple 3-way hug, this big emotional moment, the confetti and everything. It's just what wrestling needs. So we kind of laid out a lot of scenarios on that earlier on. So just scroll back a bit, and you can hear me talk all about that. So thank you very much for the fiver. Let me get into what's next here on AEW. Hey, Ben, who do I got winning Game 7 of the NLCS tonight? You know what? I don't care. I live, just 2 hours away from L.A. A lot of people are Dodgers fans around me, but I've never had any love for the Dodgers, never really cared. So they could lose, and I'd be fine with it. My last memory of the Dodgers is my man, Kirk Gibson, the former Detroit Tiger that hit the home run in the 88 series with Tommy Lasorda. I remember all of that. I have a really annoying coworker that I work with, and she loves the Dodgers, and she hasn't shut the hell up about them for the past 3 weeks at work. I think she's really like proud that she's like a chick that knows about sports, but she's horrifically annoying. She's a lot like Stephanie McMahon, just annoying to be around. I don't like listening to her talk. I don't like being in the same room with her. So to hear her just go on and on about the Dodgers, I kind of want them to lose just so she'll be disappointed. That's the evil coming out in me. But then again, I grew up in the Southeast, and when I was a kid, or a teenager, like in the 90s, all of my friends all became such huge Atlanta Brave bandwagon jumpers because there was no pro team in the Carolinas. That was kind of the closest one. Plus, they were good. So everybody just hopped on their bandwagon, and everybody I knew was a Braves fan, and I resisted it. I always rooted for the Twins and the Blue Jays and the Yankees every time they played the Braves in the World Series. And most of the time, the Braves lost. They were the Buffalo Bills there for a while before finally getting a win in like the mid-90s sometime. So I kind of dislike both teams. I don't really care who wins. I don't care. Yeah, Madeline, if they do, you're talking about the New Day reunion. If they do that, it would have to be fans. Yeah, I'm worried that 38 would be a little bit too far away for that to be. I think there's going to be fans. I think they're going to move WrestleMania away from here and do it in Florida with 50% capacity. We're already seeing this in football games already here in the States. So I think there is a chance to have an audience for WrestleMania in some way if they can put it back in Tampa at the stadium there. So that's kind of what I'm hoping. That way the stress is off me and I don't have to worry about trying to go here in LA. But yeah, I think the best spot or the best environment for that reunion would be to have as many fans there as possible. But also, I think 38 might be too far. By then, something will have to be done prior to then. Where right now, like WrestleMania, that stage is set so perfectly for Big E. Really hope that happens, man. Anyway, back to Dynamite. Oh, the MJF Inner Circle segment. I've got that written down next. We've got Jericho and the Inner Circle. They've got a little run-in with MJF this week. So MJF comes out, and he's cutting his promo. He calls out the Inner Circle. Who came out first? Was it MJF coming out first or Inner Circle coming out first? I forgot. But MJF is touting like this big announcement. He's got something he wants to say to the fans. He's got something to say to Jericho. He had recently given all of the Inner Circle members jackets with the exception of Sammy Guevara. He kind of left them out. So they all come out there, but he's got a jacket for Sammy this time. He gives it to Sammy, and it's like a size triple XL. It's just like hanging off of him. It's all the way down to his knees, and he's standing there just looking at it like all pissed. And MJF goes on just to smooch the butthole of Jericho, puts over his body, his abs, his hair. He even wants to touch Jericho's hair, and Jericho's like, yeah, you can touch it. And he's like, oh, so smooth, so silky. I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? So MJF then kind of beats around the bush a little bit, and he's really kind of reluctant to say it. He's like, but I maybe, possibly, hypothetically, potentially might want to sort of kind of join the Inner Circle. And just has to come out and say it. He has to psych himself up to actually get the words out of his mouth. And Jericho goes on to say that he hates Animal Planet, which is funny because MJF made a mention to Animal Planet, and Jericho's like, I hate Animal Planet. And MJF's like, okay, that's a very specific hatred, but whatever. He goes, the point is, imagine you're an animal, you're an animal, and you're watching Animal Planet and you see two piranhas. Piranhas don't eat each other, because they have respect for each other. And that's what you and I are. You and I are two piranhas. So he wants to join the Inner Circle, apparently. Jericho was somewhat lukewarm to it, but the other members of Inner Circle, if you notice, are very much against it. Santana and Ortiz, especially Ortiz, is just like shaking his head like, hell no. I think he even gets on the mic and he's like, no, fuck you, dude. And Sammy Guevara is so mad about his jacket. Hager just stands there stone-faced, like normal, and Jericho isn't quite sure. So they do a beautiful setup here. They do the deal where you see so many times in promos where two guys are cutting a promo against each other and they're going to propose a match. Do you have what it takes to step in the ring with me? Yeah, I do, or whatever. And they do the whole thing, but instead of a match, they're talking about a steak dinner. Are you saying you want to have a steak with me? That's what I'm saying. You and me, steak dinner next week, you're on. Just great shit there. So they've set up this steak dinner, which is going to be a very, very cute little first date for MJF and Jericho, where they're actually going to be at a restaurant having a steak dinner. Totes adorbs. I cannot wait to see this next week. It's going to be fun. And it's just going to be hilarious. They're going to be, I'm assuming they're going to do a restaurant setting here or something like that, and they're going to discuss business. But during all of that, they're probably going to be mean as shit to the server. They're probably going to send their food back. They're probably going to be hurling insults at anybody that's around them. And they're going to be, kind of passively aggressively insulting each other. And in the end, there might be a handshake that is made here and some sort of an agreement. Now, we talked a lot about this segment, and we've been talking a lot about this storyline, I should say, for the past couple of weeks. And what it feels like they're doing, to me anyway, is I think it's going to lead to a Jericho face turn. Jericho's 50 years old, man. He's had one good solid year of nonstop work in AEW. He cannot keep this up forever. I think he's there initially, to have a very front-loaded type of presence in AEW and then taper off once AEW gets rolling. That was probably his whole intention and plan the whole time. Now that he's been, this heel, it feels like this could be a good way to transition him into being a babyface. And there's all sorts of ways you can do this here. And one of the things I was thinking of that I pitched last week is that I thought maybe, Chris Jericho would have to do something to make up some reason. I got to go do some Fozzy business. I'm leaving the Inner Circle reigns to MJF while I'm gone. Inner Circle members, you are to treat him as you would treat me. He is your leader now. You treat him with the same respect that you always give me, and I'll see you in a few weeks. And then Jericho comes back, but MJF is so ingrained in his Inner Circle leadership role that he doesn't want to give up the throne. And then you have maybe the Inner Circle guys turning on Jericho and they all kind of kick him out, just like the Nation did to Farouk. MJF is Rock here in this scenario. So that could happen. But another thing that I think is funny is the way that all of the Inner Circle members all of them were going so far out of their way to show their dislike and distrust and disgust of MJF. Especially Ortiz, who's just like, hell no, or whatever. And Sammy just hates his jacket. What if this is all a ploy? What if they're all in on this with MJF? They're going to make Jericho think they want nothing to do with him. Jericho's going to be the only one that maybe wants to accept MJF. And this whole thing is a ploy. It blows off in a couple of weeks where you get everybody in the ring, and then Jericho is trying to convince all of the Inner Circle members one by one that MJF is worthy of being in the Inner Circle, and they're still fighting it very hard, and then Jericho, maybe he turns his back, maybe as he's trying to convince Hager, he's like, I don't like him. He's trying to convince Sam. He's like, look at my fucking jacket. I hate that guy. And of course, Santana and Ortiz want nothing to do with MJF either. And then maybe Jericho shows a little bit of frustration and he just kind of turns his back and puts his head down. He's like, man, I thought we were all on the same team here. I don't know what else I can do to convince you. And then bam, he gets nailed from behind by MJF and all the Inner Circle members swarm right on him. The whole thing was a ploy. They were all acting. They were pretending they didn't want anything to do with MJF. They've been on his side the whole time. They've lost trust in Chris Jericho because he dropped the belt and he fell in the orange juice bath in his feud with Orange Cassidy and came up on the short end there, where MJF he's only had like one loss in AEW. He's got a far better record. He's a far better guy near the top of title contention right now, and he hasn't been losing matches like Jericho has. And that there could be a story there, they could use that. After Orange Cassidy beat you in your own match, you showed us that you weren't a worthy leader of Inner Circle. Here's a guy that can be, kind of thing. So I would like to see that. I would like to see this whole thing be a ploy, and then they beat the shit out of Jericho. He goes off TV for a couple weeks, maybe goes and does another Fozzy concert and infects 100,000 people with COVID, and then he comes back, and now he's babyface Jericho. Now we get a few months of babyface Jericho in AEW, which I think can also be fun, where we can see Jericho going back to his fun-loving ways and can set up some really interesting matches with the Inner Circle guys, and most importantly, MJF. So I think that's where they could go. I think the title could also play a role in this as well, somewhere down the line. Maybe Jericho gets one more taste of it. I had pitched that as well. I said, put the belt on Jericho for 1 month. Nothing crazy. 1 month, babyface Jericho is champion. He'll go down as a 2-time AEW champion, the first guy to hold the belt twice. He'll do it as a heel and a babyface. The AEW audience and company will get to experience both sides of Jericho's personality, and it could be a really nice, story, tied together in the end. So I would like to see that. It would extend the longevity and the lifespan of the Inner Circle. They got a brand new, fresh leader now. They could be around for another year after this. Where you feel like where the faction at this point is like close to running its course, could have a whole new rebirth here if they did something with MJF, which I think is kind of the point here. So I think a situation like that would be a lot of fun. But we also, speaking of the title, we also had the brackets of the tournament revealed as well. They're doing this week-by-week tournament. I think the finals take place at Full Gear. The winner will be the new #1 contender for the title. And if you notice in the brackets, you got Hangman Page and Kenny on opposite sides. There's your final right there. If you don't do Kenny and Hangman in the final, what the hell are you doing? And everybody that I've seen have talked about this tournament. They've all said the same thing. They all say it's like Omega is going to be the one to win this, and it's going to be Omega and challenging for the title, which I definitely think Omega will be AEW champion one day. But we already saw Omega and Moxley. They did those crazy matches last year, the one where they both almost died, and got in trouble with the Maryland Athletic Commission and just beat the hell out of each other. We did see that already. I think a better winner is Page. The better winner is Page beating Kenny and going up against Moxley. I think Moxley and Page matches might be a lot of fun down the line. So Adam Page is my pick to win the tournament, and I think it'll be Page and Kenny Omega in the final, with Page winning. I could be way wrong on that. That's just kind of what I would like to see if it was up to me. Only because, now if Mox is not champion, then fine, have Kenny win. I'm a big Omega fan, and I think he should have already been at the top with the title. He's not there yet, but I'm willing to wait longer and give Hangman the opportunity first if it was up to me. Highlight of the week was up next. Britt Baker and Tony Schiavone at the Spa. Oh my God, this is so good. So good. These two have got the best chemistry in wrestling, honestly. Their relationship is hysterical. They argue all the time. Britt Baker has treated Tony Schiavone like a complete piece of shit for weeks and weeks and weeks. Tony's getting to the point now where he's starting to bark back at her a little bit, and they're almost starting to sound like kind of an old married couple. And Britt is just fabulous. I don't even know what led to her taking her, how her and Tony got to the Spa to begin with. But they're both getting massages. They're both getting facials. Britt Baker is freaking out that Tony Schiavone is naked under the cloth. I mean, he's got the cloth draped over him on the massage table, but he's naked, and she wants nothing to do with that. She wants to be in another country. She doesn't want to be within 100 miles of this dude naked. And then he gets his chest waxed and his body waxed. The whole segment was just fun. It's one of my favorite parts of AEW. I don't need Britt Baker in the ring. I just need her backstage with Tony Schiavone. That's all I need. Those two are absolutely money together. And great chemistry. Always good stuff there. That was on a show that had 4 title matches. I marked out for that the most. What does that tell you about wrestling? Tony Schiavone getting a pop of the week out of old good mic work. Up next, we had the TNT Championship on the line. Cody, of course, just recently won the belt back in the dog collar match. He's going to be taking on Orange Cassidy here. This was set up last week, so we already knew going in to this week that this was going to be our match. Cody comes back out blonde. So did he dye his hair just for that game show? I liked him with the dark hair. I was hoping it would stick around, but he's back to being blonde again. And it was kind of weird, too, in this match because they immediately, as the guys are making their entrances, they show Darby Allin up in the stands. Now, Darby and Cody have already had at least 2 wars, right? Maybe even a third. So it looks like they're setting up here for Cody and Darby down the line, which I think sucked for Orange Cassidy, because it made you automatically feel prior to the match that he wasn't going to be winning the title. But he didn't lose. He took Cody to a time limit draw, which I thought was really good. And the match between the two was really good. And it sets up now a rematch. I don't know if they're going to do that next week or what. But Cody is kind of vowing to get it right this time and actually put Cassidy away. And it feels like that was just a way to kind of keep Cassidy somewhat strong, because I don't think he's going to come out of this situation with the title, but he also came off that feud with Chris Jericho. You don't want to totally bury him here either. So the fact that he took Cody to the limit, I think didn't Darby do the same thing? Didn't Darby take Cody to a time limit draw as well? Where they had 2 matches. I think Cody won one, and then maybe it was time limit in the other one. I could be wrong about that. I don't remember. It seems like they've done the time limit thing before with Cody. So Cassidy took him to the limit there. They'll do this match again. But still, in the end, I think Cody's going to come out of this, because I guess they're going to set up now for Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin. And I'm hoping Cody makes that full transition into being a heel. He's showboating a little bit more in the matches. Arn's getting annoyed with it. At some point, they got to, take this a step further and make Cody do something, really kind of dastardly here. So maybe the full-blown heel turn comes by then. I love Cody and Darby's matches. I think they have good chemistry. They got a lot of history. That's going to make for a fun program. But I'm almost surprised that they're giving Darby yet another shot with Cody here, if that is the direction they go in. I guess that'll be your Full Gear match, right? They'll do Cody and Cassidy on TV, and then Darby and Cody will wrestle for the title at Full Gear. It's gonna be a good match. But anyway, that's what happened there. Hikaru Shida defended the title against Big Swole. Big Swole I love. Something just felt a little bit off about this match. Hikaru Shida won. If they were going to do a title change anywhere on this program or on this telecast, as Tony Schiavone would say, I thought this would have been it. But Shida won. We love Shida. No reason in my mind to take the belt off of her. But again, with the women's division, much like when Rio was the champion, it felt like the women's title was an afterthought. There's no big stories there, especially when you have Britt Baker, waiting here in the wings. Eventually, I guess I would put the title on Britt Baker, because that's going to be fabulous. If you can imagine these Britt Baker and Tony Schiavone segments with Britt having the title. You think she's going to be a little bit obnoxious? That's going to be good stuff. So I kind of think Britt is going to be groomed to take the belt off of Shida. I would like to see that match happen at Full Gear. Can Britt wrestle? What's her deal? She back in the ring yet or what? But you put Britt and Shida together as soon as possible and put the belt on Britt. That's what I want to see, because Britt has really developed herself now as a really entertaining heel, and she's one of the more entertaining people all across professional wrestling right now. And I think I think she deserves the title for that. And can you imagine her bragging to Shivani when that happens? So maybe book that. Otherwise, as much as I like Hikaru Shida, I feel like the title, and they might be doing some more with Nyla Rose too, because she was kind of out there. I feel like the title is really not that much better off than it was when it was with Riho, who was a damn fine, good little wrestler in her own right, but there's no stories there. So Britt Baker is really the best thing they have. And if you have a women's division that's already kind of suffering to begin with, you should put the belt on the best thing you got. And I think Britt is it. So Shida retains there. That brings us to the main event, Jon Moxley defending against Lance Archer. This was a match that I was nervous about because I didn't see Moxley losing, but Archer has been so dominant. You know, the way Archer just tears. Archer's more entertaining and more dangerous looking than Braun Strowman is these days. You know, he's been doing a great job on television, just beating everybody's ass with Jake backing him up. So I was worried about how they were going to get out of this match. Number one, I didn't see Mox losing, but number two, do you really want to beat Archer here? But I actually liked, everybody complained about the finish of Moxley and Archer, but I liked it. I liked the fact that he crucifixed him and got a quick pin. Archer bounced right up and was like, referee, he was almost like surprised that he got the 3 count. It was like, come on, ref, I had my shoulder up or whatever. So it's not like Moxley knocked him out or choked him out or pinned him after a paradigm shift. He hit him with the crucifix to where it doesn't yes, it beats Archer, but it doesn't beat him. You know what I mean? And he popped right up. So I guess they probably booked it in best the way that they could to have Moxley, number one, win and win clean, but do it in such a way to where, you know, Archer doesn't look weak. You know, he just got pinned. It's not like he got beat up or anything like that. He popped right up and was completely 100% after the pin. I think a brawl ensues there. Archer and Jake, I think, powder out. And Eddie Kingston, who was doing commentary throughout the whole thing, he recently had a war with Moxley on TV, and he hasn't shut the hell up about how not only was he not eliminated from the Battle Royal, but he didn't submit either in the match with Moxley. He was choked out. So the only thing I didn't like was after this match, after Moxley, who you would think has got a fair amount of street smarts about him, he beats Lance Archer. Kingston comes out with the Lucha Brothers, or Lucha Bros, and he starts putting over Moxley on the mic, talks about their history and what a tough dude he is and this and that, and, you know, kind of goes to shake his hand, and Moxley does not seem weary of this at all. He doesn't seem suspicious. He seems to be going along with it, and he kind of allows himself to get really close to Eddie, and then Eddie nails him with some, like, sort of back. It almost looked like the Jupiter punch that John Cena used for a short time there, that weird little finishing thing that he did. Kind of looked like something like that. He catches Moxley. Moxley goes down. They all attack him. And my only thought was, why didn't Mox see this coming? Why did he not see this coming a mile away? You can't trust Eddie Kingston. Dude's full of shit, man. I don't care what your history is. You know, you guys just had a big match on TV a couple of weeks ago. You know, you had to have smelled something fishy here when these guys came out, all of a sudden start sucking your dick. You know something's up. So why didn't he see this attack coming? I thought that was a little bit silly. But anyway, he gets taken out, and it appears they're probably going to be setting up for some big stipulation match between these two at Full Gear. That's going to be awesome because Eddie has got the whole deal. He didn't pass out, or he didn't quit, is what he said. So what if they do an I Quit match? They could do a Falls Count Anywhere. They could do a cage. They could do some sort of I feel like this could be something similar, not the same because Eddie is not in the same shape, but this could be something similar to what we saw with Omega and Moxley last year, where I think it's going to be some really hardcore violent match because that's their roots, both of these guys. Eddie has made that a big talking point of the feud, you know, saying, you know, we started from the same place. We were the hardcore style. We were the violent style, and you sold out to become a sports entertainer. You can't do what I can do. You can't do what we used to do. You don't have what it takes anymore, you know, because you sold your soul, you know. So you do Mox and Eddie in some sort of a, I don't know what stip you can put on it. If you can just do something simple like a no DQ or a weapons match, hardcore match. What did they call? What didn't Omega and Moxley have a name for their crazy shit with the barbed wire trampoline and all the other crap they did? Wasn't there some sort of weird name for it? So they'll attach a gimmick name to it and make some sort of a stipulation and make it, an old school, like hardcore ECW, CZW type of brawl between the two that will see a lot of blood shed for sure. And in the end, you'll see Mox retain. He'll beat him. Eddie won't win or anything, but it'll be a hell of a good match for Eddie to be in. Be a pretty big thrill for him based on where he is in his life and his career to come full circle, back working with Moxley again. Now at a pay-per-view for a world championship. Pretty awesome. Win, lose, or draw. It's a pretty awesome moment for Eddie. And then after that, you can move Mox into whoever wins the tournament, like a Hangman Page, like an Omega, somebody like that. Who's going to beat Mox for the title? Is it the winner of the tournament, or is it going to be somebody after that? Because at some point, if it's not, here at the end of October and it's not in November, then you got to start talking about the year thing again. Then we're going to become, because when did Mox win? February at Revolution? So, by the end of the year, you're going to have to say, oh, do they want to just hold it off now and have Mox hold the title for a full year in the company? They might want to do that. I don't know. Y'all tell me. I think that wraps it up for my predictions. We'll talk a little bit about Hell in the Cell here in a minute, but let me cruise up, make sure there's no other super. Oh, there is one. Jesus, Spaz, throwing me another $10, so I appreciate it, man. Thanks for 10 more. Intercompany fantasy draft. Oh, this will be good. I want Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin for NXT Cruiserweight division. Statlander and Baker for the women. Offer AEW Loomis, Grimes, Lana, and Nia Jax, and call it the Gold New Deal. Oh, yeah. I like Statlander, too. I hope she's doing well. I know she's had some knee surgery. And Baker, of course, I love. Yeah, Guevara and Darby, I think, would be really good, at least in NXT. Yeah, the Cruiserweight division is probably where WWE would stick them, but, Darby Allin is a guy that I think could go beyond that based on his gimmick and based on some of the parallels he draws with Jeff Hardy. I think he could be, one of those guys that just because of his size like Hardy doesn't mean he has to be relegated to the Cruiserweight division. He's got more potential than that. And I've always been a Sammy fan, like Sammy Guevara a lot. I think he's got big potential. That would be good. I don't know if I might want to see NXT hang on to Loomis, but the idea of Dexter going to AEW would be cool. Lana and Nia Jax there, though. Lana might be interesting because Miro's there, but Nia, what the hell is she going to do? Nia Jax and Nyla Rose, that might be a match. That might be a tag team. Either way, it'd be interesting. The Gold New Deal. I'm down. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, the governor of Florida did open up everything, but the governor doesn't decide, what the leagues do. Like the NFL will decide if there's full capacity at the Super Bowl. It's one thing to be allowed to have it. It's another thing to do it. So the NFL, they gotta be mindful too of their image and their PR. And, just because you're allowed to do something might not mean it's the best idea. So I think that, because right now I think the Miami Dolphins and the Jaguars, do they have any fans in the audience? Because if they have free reign to do whatever and they're not doing it, I know the Miami Dolphins said no, they're not going to bring people in. So it kind of depends. But then again, 6-7 months from now, who knows? Is that where the Super Bowl is? Super Bowl's in Florida? Or maybe those are two separate statements by you. But yeah, the governor, now with WWE, I think Vince will, do whatever he can to have people there or whatever. But when it comes to like NFL teams and stuff, I think that's up to the individual teams, what they're allowing and, maybe even the league itself. So I think it's separated. The governor's got to make the rules, and then everybody chooses, do you want to pack your crowd or do you want to play it safe or whatever? So I think it depends there, but Florida's going to be a mess. Florida is going to be a mess just based on their behavior. I think Trump's taken that state in the Electoral College. I don't think there's going to be enough there to turn it blue. Just based on the sheer stupidity down there. My God. Oh, Super Bowl is in Tampa. Holy crap. Jags had 25% at the game today. See, that I can live with. I'm cool. I mean, if you're in a stadium and you're outside, and go into a game and you stand 6 feet away from each other and you're 25%, that's like showing some sort of responsibility, where the government's saying, if you want to put 100,000 people in the arena, I'm cool with that. At least the Jags are smarter. At least the Dolphins are likely smarter. And the Super Bowl being in Tampa, that's crazy. So the Super Bowl could be in Tampa. Super Bowl could, and WrestleMania could both be there, I suppose. That's nuts. Dolphins had fans. I didn't look at any football today. They had fans at today's game. And I've seen, a lot of the NFL games. I've seen fans, but they seem relatively separated. The one that surprised me the most was the one that I was watching. We had it on in the bar at work last night. It was Georgia and Alabama, and there was a lot of people there. A lot. Oh, Brady smoked Rodgers today. Oh, was it Tampa Bay and Green Bay? I've not looked at any scores at all today. I do think the Lions won. I think the Lions beat Jacksonville, actually, I think. Did I read that right? Yeah, 34-16 over Jags. Indy beat Cincy. Pittsburgh over... Oh, Cleveland dropped. Went down hard. Denver over New England. Tennessee over Houston. San Francisco would lead on the Rams. Baltimore over Philly. Carolina went down. All right. Oh, and Miami blanked the Jets. Oh, wow, yeah. Tampa Bay did put a hurting on Green Bay, didn't they? Woohoo. And the Braves are up 1-0 against LA in the first. There's your sports update here from Good Micro Commentaries. Hope you enjoyed. Where'd I go? There we go. Oh, yeah, that's a good point, Mr. E. Tampa is Big E's hometown? How did I not know that? That would be a great moment for him. It'd be an absolutely great moment. I'm really hoping that that they put WrestleMania in Tampa. Because if it's here, then I have to stress myself out. Oh my God, should I go? Should I not go? Or whatever. It's in Tampa. I don't have to worry about it. And that'd be a good moment. I envision that. I felt like they did it a little bit at WrestleMania 30, but there's something about that Benoit Eddie memory that hurts so bad because we can never enjoy it again because they don't show it and they don't talk about it and it's erased. But it was one of the best moments in wrestling history, and I've always wanted to see them kind of recreate that. And I felt like they did it a little bit with Daniel Bryan because that was such a feel-good story, but the New Day, I think, can even be a little bit more. If you do that scenario where there's that, that big hug and they haven't seen each other, at least on television, they haven't seen each other in 6 months, and you bring them together like that, that'll get to the audience. That'll make a hell of a moment. So it's all got to work out though. Speaking of Hell in the Cell, WWE again, here's what we got. So we got Drew and Orton, Roman and Uso, and Bayley and Sasha. All 3 matches are inside Hell in the Cell. That's all that's really officially announced. We're probably going to get Lana versus Asuka, right? Based on what we saw on SmackDown, we're probably also going to get Street Profits against Rude and Ziggler for the titles because that ended in a DQ on Friday. We might, depending on what happens tomorrow with Strowman and Keith Lee, we might get that. If they do another stupid disqualification, they might rebook this match for the pay-per-view. I hope not, but I feel like they could do that. I also think they can hold off on Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins and not do that match and maybe do Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy first. So I think maybe Friday they'll announce Seth and Buddy for Hell in the Cell, and then maybe Daniel Bryan and Seth can head things up after that. But then after that, we got to be talking Survivor Series. So then what are they going to do for Survivor Series? Is it going to be Raw versus SmackDown crap again, or are they going to not worry about that? I don't know. And we could also potentially at Hell in the Cell see some sort of a tag with the Hurt Business and Retribution. I think it was an absolute crime that Retribution and Ali was not on the show on Monday night with Ali doing his big explanation promo as to why he turned. They had no mention of him at all. And it's so funny that Retribution's angle is they're mad. They're trying to get revenge and Retribution for lack of TV time, and now the whole faction is a lack of TV time. They got drafted by Raw. The whole thing is so silly. And then Raw is now that they've drafted them, it's well, we'll just choose not to put you on TV. We're not going to use you. Now you're right back in. Now you've got your silly masks and your silly names and your dumb faction, and you're still in the exact same position that all of you were in before when you were all so mad. Ali wasn't getting any TV time before. Now he drops this big angle, this big bombshell, and they keep him off TV the next week. Typical WWE. Makes no damn sense, if you ask me. So yeah, we could get Hurt Business and Retribution too. So right there, even if we got those matches, we're still only looking. Well, we're looking at 8. That'll probably round out the card there. You could do a women's tag, possibly tag match, but I don't think so unless you brought in the Riots again, or I don't know. But that seems like that's it. I don't know what other match I'm missing that they could actually throw on there. It seems like that'll probably be it. Drew, Roman, and Sasha for the win, says Mr. E. I agree. Orton is Stone Cold sleeper pick. I thought Orton was going to win the title last month, and Drew would win it back here. So then, since that didn't happen, I kind of think, and since Drew hasn't really beat Orton super definitively, he won with a backslide, and then he won with help from 4 legends in the ambulance match. I think this is maybe where he puts him down and asserts himself as a true dominant champion against Orton. But who knows? Orton could pull out of it. I'd be fine either way. Thank you, Luigi, for the $5. I don't know if they can do Big E at Mania if Roman has a match with Rock or Goldberg. Right. You do have to think about that. I'm kind of hoping the Goldberg stuff happens quicker because they made mention about the Goldberg stuff the other day that he was going to be in the Thunderdome. And you know how Goldberg took on Brock at Survivor Series a few years ago? What if you do Goldberg and Roman at Survivor Series this year? Get that match out of the way. I think if WWE has its way, it would love to do Roman and Rock. But I also think Roman and Rock would be much better suited for here in LA in a packed stadium. That's likely not going to happen now. So they could do Roman and Rock some other time, or maybe have him drop the belt prior to that. Because I also think if you do Roman and Rock, maybe you don't even need to do the title on the line. I don't know, but Roman will probably be champion going into that. I guess you're right. It depends on what their plans are. But prior to the pandemic, I think we all envisioned Big E Rock and Roman here in Los Angeles. But now that's not going to happen. And it's in Tampa. I would go backwards. I mean, Rock is from Florida too, but I would have Big E go up against Roman. And if you're going to do the Goldberg match, do it before WrestleMania. Do it next month at Survivor Series. Don't do it at Mania. I don't want to see that. And plus, I'm no fan of Goldberg and at all. I don't want to see him in the ring, but I put this on Twitter too. If he's ever going to officially retire, finally after all these years hang up the boots, Roman is the perfect guy right now at the perfect time to retire that man. He can, not only can I'm the tribal chief and blah, 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 and Paul Heyman talking it up. I'm the man that retired Goldberg, the man that beat The Fiend, the man that beat Brock Lesnar in 30 seconds. I retired him. I ended him. There is no more Goldberg because of me. I would actually get behind that. That's not something, I know, I don't want to see Goldberg on TV. Me neither. But if it means somebody's going to retire him and heel Roman in his badass way, puts Goldberg down hard, and we never see Goldberg again, I can gladly accept Goldberg back for one more storyline or one more match. If he spears and beats Roman Reigns, I will saw my face off. But that's not going to happen. But then again, I said he wouldn't beat The Fiend either. I don't think he's going to beat Roman. So if you bring Goldberg back, bring him back for Roman to retire him. That's it. There should be no reason for Goldberg to come back and have another match if Roman beats him. It's done. Undertaker beat him, Strowman beat him, Roman beat him, Brock beat him. Everybody's beat him. So it's time for him to go away and stay gone finally. That's what I hope happens prior to that. Oh, thank you for that, Jacob. Lana and Asuka is happening tomorrow night on Raw. I want, but Zelina got a rematch, so if they do that match tomorrow night on Raw, maybe something happens and then Lana gets another match at Hell in a Cell. Because Zelina got 2, remember? She lost at the pay-per-view and then got a match on Raw. Maybe you flip that here and you do Asuka and Lana again, because otherwise Asuka's either not going to have a match at Hell in a Cell, which is also okay, to have the focus completely on Bayley and Sasha. Asuka's either not going to have a match at all at Hell in a Cell, or I think she'll have a rematch with Lana. I don't think there's enough time to have her tomorrow have a match with Lana and then have a whole new opponent for Hell in a Cell. There's no time for that. It'd be weird. So I think tomorrow's the first of 2 matches between the two, and they're going to wrestle again at the Cell. That's my guess. Yeah, and Royal Rumble would be good too. Goldberg Roman match. Some pay-per-view before WrestleMania. That's all I give a shit about. And Survivor Series and Rumble, that's 2 of your big 5 in a row that you pretty much have in very close proximity in November and January. So do that match at one of those 2, and that is enough of Mr. Goldberg. Because he's already done the Hall of Fame. I was about to say do Goldberg, retire him, and then he can go in the Hall of Fame, but he's already done that shit. So just end it. End it now. Speaking of ending it now, I think I'm going to wrap up this podcast. We've been going for nearly 3 hours. It feels so good not to have to go into work after a podcast because I got to take my time with this episode. So I appreciate you guys hanging out today. Thank you for all the generous, kind words and all the very generous super chats today and everything we did. It was a lot of fun. 24 hours from now, I'm back. We'll be back up here again tomorrow night, immediately following Raw. We'll talk about Lana and Asuka. We'll talk about Roman and Lee. And we'll talk about what else did they have planned for tomorrow. I think that was it. So we'll see if anything interesting comes out of Raw. And then we're on the home stretch here to Hell in the Cell. So you guys have a good rest of your Sunday evening. Thanks for hanging out. Catch y'all tomorrow night after Raw. Peace.